order, Historic Landmarks Commission, July 31st, 2024. Let's start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present?
Vice Chair House is absent. Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan.
Here.
Commissioner Jury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg is absent. Commissioner Linvik is also absent. Commissioner McClure.
Here.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. So now we'll go on to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. All right.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I don't have any speaker slips at this time,
Kick you out.
and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual.
All right.
Oh, just kidding. I do have speaker slips, so we'll go ahead and start with Sherry Ray. If you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
She said you were absent, so I moved into your seat.
Here's one for the camera. And
Thank you.
good hand out to everybody.
Plus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So I have a handout to be shown.
And City TV, if you can go to the handout here. There we go. Okay. Zoom in. Is this a side that you want?
That's great. Yeah, and I'll have you turn it over in a minute. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the chance to speak with you today. I've appeared here often recently speaking about concerns about the years of not-so-benign neglect of the city historic landmark Doremus Stone Pines on Anapamu Street. The Parks Department does not seem to have a clear understanding about the number, designation, or significance of, or the care and maintenance required of city historic landmark trees. I believe the HLC Living Landmark Working Group must develop a formalized standard of care for these trees to make something good come of the loss of old-growth Doremus trees and far better treatment of their replacement canopy. In March, I researched and wrote an Arbor Day article and visited all 8 of our city's historic landmark trees. Pictured here are a few. The pepper tree at City Hall on the upper right, the Fernald eucalyptus on the bottom, which is actually located in the parking lot of Smart and Final, and the Morton Bay fig tree at Cottage Hospital. Without signage, however, no one would ever know their historic significance. I have some suggestions about their care. 1, prioritize landmarks over street trees, coordination, communication, and cooperation throughout the city, clear lines of authority and enforcement, implement the urban forest management plan that was passed in 2014, but I never see it ever referred to. But on the front page, it says preserving and protecting our community trees, education and community involvement, and appropriate signage, interpretation, and protection. If you could turn it over, please. This is the current condition of the Morton Bay fig tree near the train station, our most famous city historic landmark tree. The good news is that it appears healthy with a good deal of new growth, surely helped by the protective fencing that has surrounded it and the entire triangular, formerly park-like area for many, many months. The Marburg chain link fence, which is clearly marked temporary, might be effective in keeping intruders off the roots, but its aesthetic insults its botanical significance and its historic importance to this city. Pearl Chase once fended off railroad officials to save this tree many years ago. She would not have expected this. As she said, don't develop something ugly when it is no more effort to develop something beautiful. It's time to summon her characteristic righteous indignation and do better for our living landmarks, all of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, we have Rick Clausen. If you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Will the minutes reflect that Commissioner Ensberg has arrived? She was excused. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I want to yield the first 13 seconds of my 2 minutes to the Queen of Soul. Yeah, sock it to me. Many citizens feel that the commission doesn't get the respect that it deserves. You are important to every thought experiment that's ever discussed and every planning decision that gets made by this city, which is nationally known for historic preservation. Why do I say that? Because when an applicant presents a project at concept review, or when a commissioner is the history representative on a broad-based committee, and they turn to you or the representative for the preservation perspective, you give answers that are smarter and more useful than the questions that they asked. When citizens hear plans for a historic city property that minimize or deflect HLC input and oversight, it pains us. When your representative is on a subcommittee or the collective commission is told by staff, in so many words, you'll have your turn at input later on in the process. We feel you and our preservation interests are being sidetracked. We worry that the intent is for whatever plan to move along in some guided direction until it has gathered juggernaut momentum and it becomes difficult or impossible to nudge off course. Then you may enter discussion on, or to suggest minor nips and tucks to the behemoth. That's not the way it should work for our historic structures, districts, or landmarks, or landscapes. The reason Santa Barbara has what we now have is because prior HLCs were steadfast in the name of preservation principles, even cranky sometimes, despite the vocal discomfort of developers and some homeowners. We citizens need to figure a way to restore that respect the HLC deserves from the public, the city staff, and the development community. In the meantime, please keep up your good work.
Thank you.
At this time, I don't have any further speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, but we did receive written correspondence from Rick Clausen and Kevin that was distributed to the commission prior to the hearing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are done with public comment. We are on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting July 17th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Drury, second by Vice Chair House. Under discussion, any edits,
Mr. Chair.
changes? Yep.
Page 7.
Okay,
of
hold on one second while they get there.
the number 4 pre-approved accessory dwelling unit.
Oh,
item.
and your mic is on. Okay, good.
Just a misspelling. So instead of number 2 under the motion, add board and baton, but it should be batten, B-A-T-T-E-N. That's the only thing I've got there.
Yeah, that might be a new style.
Well, with the Fiesta Parade coming up, you know.
A good Olympic check.
Yeah, the Olympic. And so, and then in item number 5, the pre-approved accessory dwelling units, under the motion number 3, page 8, sliding glass doors need to be French doors and with muntins divided light. Did we not specify 6 lights, or was there a specification for how many lights in that iteration?
There may have been. I know that we discussed it. I don't know.
6 lights shows up in other places.
Okay. If we can do it, we'll have a double check of that, just to
Okay.
make sure that that was
Okay.
in the motion. It might have been because there were different sizes, there might have been some different size
Right.
openings, there might have been 6 in some, and there might be more or less.
I don't know that we need to be that specific,
Okay,
evaluate it.
okay. That's it for me.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yeah, I just had one comment on the, where was it here? Oh, yes, on page 2, 3B, discussion on the creation of a local office for historic preservation. I think that's what was said, but what I meant to say was department. So I don't know if that can be corrected here, or whether we have to go through a whole nother thing.
That is not a motion, so we can make that a correction right now.
Okay. That was
Okay.
what I
Yeah.
meant to say was
Gotcha.
department.
Yep.
Otherwise, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, any other edits? All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan?
Yes, with the exception that I abstain on items 4 through 7 because I left the meeting early.
All right, Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Abstain.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes, for
Vice-
the same reason as us, Dennis, a little bit of abstination.
Commissioner McClure, do you mind clarifying which items you're abstaining from? So we
You
have
know,
that
I
in-
think it was, if you could scroll back, it was noted in the minutes. I think it was, could be the last one,
4 through 7.
right there. 7.
And it
6.
looks like 6 as well. We'll check 5 just to be safe. Just looks like 5 as well.
5, 6, 7.
were.
You abandoned us.
All right, we'll do
Okay.
4 through 7.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Any
Vi-
oth-
We're continuing.
Oh, sorry.
with-
Yeah, we're still voting. Yeah, sorry.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Oh, on to item C, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting, July 17th, 2024.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the commission, just because some of you might be confused as to why we've added this to the agenda. This is a new procedure just to clarify things for appeal purposes. So you did ratify the motions from the consent hearing at the last meeting, but now you're ratifying the minutes, or you're approving the minutes. So that's the distinction there.
We're approving the minutes of the consent meeting.
Yes.
Got it.
So-
And this is the first time we've approved meetings of the consent.
Well, correct. So our typical procedure, or our procedure up until this point, is that you are just ratifying the motions that were made, so that way it starts the 10-day appeal period, and applicants don't have to wait until the next HLC meeting to apply to building permit. But just so the commission has a chance to actually look at the minutes and edit them, now we have that at the subsequent meeting.
Great, thank you. Okay, and so do I have a motion to approve the
So moved.
consent minutes? Okay.
Second.
We got a motion, Commissioner Drury, second by Commissioner Butler. And so under discussion, any edits to that? And that would probably be Vice Chair House or McClure that would have edits
I
as they
don't
would,
think I have anything.
if they had, if there was any. Okay. Commissioner McClure. All right, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Abstain.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan?
Yes,
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, on to item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar of today, July 31st, 2024.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Or move to approve the actions.
Second.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Drury, to staff?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Item A was 928 Garden Street, which received project design approval and final approval with conditions and findings. Oh, and the conditions were to add a small tree such as a stenocarpus and add plantings under the stairwell such as star jasmine. Item B was 135 East Anapamu Street, which received project design approval and final approval with the condition that option B be used for the storefront and the following findings. Item C is 634 Anacapa Street, which received project design approval and final approval with findings. And item D was 316 West Anapamu Street, which received project design approval and final approval with findings.
Okay. So any discussion about that? Okay, not seeing any. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan?
yes,
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. So on to item E, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. To staff?
Yes, we do have project planner Rosie Dicey here, who is here to give you an announcement on the objective design and development standards.
Good afternoon, Chair Grumbine and members of the commission. I'm pleased to be before you today to let you know the status of the Objective Design and Development Standards project that we have been working on since 2021. So the status is that we have the proposed adoption draft posted for public review on our website. And we do have a couple of web maps there as well that help guide people through the objective design standard zones and the architectural styles. We are going to the Planning Commission on August 8th to ask for a recommendation to City Council to adopt the objective design and development standards and amendments to Title 30 that are related to these new standards. And I provided a memo that sort of summarized where we were at. I have had very helpful participation from the work group, and 2 of the work group members are here, or 3 actually are here today on your board. They've been instrumental to getting this document to where it is today. And with that, I'll just see if you have any questions or comments.
All right, and I don't know if the work group members want to speak up and mention anything that their thoughts on things and where they are in the process and all that.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say that there's been a lot of work on this draft from earlier versions, and it's in very good shape, and I'm very supportive.
I would agree.
Okay, great.
Chair Grumbine?
Yeah.
I represented the AIA, so I wasn't part of the HLC, but, so I'll just refrain from comment, but I was representing that group.
Okay. You can take your AIA hat off for a second. Just tell us the inside scoop. All right. Thank you. And thank you all for your volunteering for this as well. It's been a lot of work, I'm sure. Okay. Other announcements, requests by applicants for continuous withdrawals, et cetera?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
my wife and I
Charles.
took a very wonderful walking tour in downtown LA in the Broadway National Historic District, and is put on by a company called Esotouric. And the guest host was a gentleman named Gordon Pattison, who may be the last living resident of Bunker Hill before it was all demolished. And it was just really wonderful. It was a couple hours, 3 hours. And one of the places we went was the Dutch chocolate shop. Sorry, you can't get any chocolates there because it's been abandoned for who knows how long, but the entire interior of the space is covered with Ernest Batchelder tiles, and he was a leader of the American Arts and Crafts movement. So anyway, I highly recommend it, and I have put together a photo library on Google Photos. I'm going to send a link to all of you so you can take a look
great.
if you want.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Any other announcements, et cetera?
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
Just to kind of continue some of these discussion items that have been talked about before. Last time, we were asking for, I guess, and maybe this is part of the next group in the subcommittees, about the El Pueblo Viejo outdoor dining standards. Should I hold off on that to, I didn't know how.
Yeah, let's do it then.
Okay,
Actually, that's a
do that
good
one
point.
then. Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then, so the other one was, how do we need to agendize, how do we move forward with some kind of a letter or a document or communication to council about this whole idea of a department for historic preservation? I'm not sure how to do that or what would be appropriate, but
yeah.
I don't want it just to sit there and not.
Yeah, what would be
move.
the process to
Yeah.
actually get something?
Right.
Yeah.
So because the design review supervisor's on maternity leave, I think it might be something we first discuss with her, a strategy of how you would do that, or what results you want, and then she can approach it with Allison, Eli, and council, and what kind of funds those would entail. So I think it would take maybe a working group with Ellen Kokinda when she returns as the first step.
And do we have a date that is at least tentative yet for that return? Do we know?
She said August,
Okay.
but I don't
Well,
think it's
that's
going to be the
tomorrow.
beginning. I don't think she's coming back tomorrow. So we have not,
Okay.
we've
So
not
that
heard
sounds
a
good. I
date.
just want to know if it was like
But
an August thing or September, October, or whatever. So
So far, we
Okay.
think it's August, but she
Okay.
has not.
Maybe we could schedule it sometime after then, so
Yeah.
at least it's on there, and that once she's back, then we
So,
can have that
and
So
let's-
she can come down and maybe
Yeah,
get an
have-
ad hoc subcommittee or something.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
something
So-
that,
And maybe we can
but
do it.
there'll be a lot when she comes back, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure how quickly
So
she'll be able to do it.
Maybe the easiest way will be when she does come back, and we know about it, then we can agendize it just for a very short discussion, just so that we can all throw 2 cents in, and then have something to go forward and with the working group. So there's no time needed. It's just a matter of, like, anyone who has any good ideas or knows anything about any other cities that do things similarly or different or whatever, we can have a very short time, and we'll be very disciplined about having a discussion, saying your 2 cents if you have an idea of something, and then getting a working group together and at least selected, so that then we can move forward as a subcommittee or a working group, and then we can kind of send them off to work with Ellen in the future. So that way it's not Ellen's time or anyone else's time, unless whoever wants to do research or whatever.
And
How does that sound?
just, pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, if I could just make a few clarifications. So we, only city council can direct us to start a subcommittee, so we wouldn't be able to do a subcommittee. We would be able to do a discussion item. We can discuss the content of that discussion item with you and maybe Allison while we're waiting for Ellen. But I would just like to let the commission know that we are currently booked out until September. So
Okay.
we've got
So-
really heavy agendas.
Oh, yeah, and sorry, I think I misspoke. Not subcommittee, working group. We're allowed to do working groups, right?
Well, so as the city attorney defined a working group, those are related to staff-specific projects, and it's made up of less than a quorum of members. So I think that has to be related to like an active staff project. So I can discuss with Nicole and I can discuss with the supervisors what our options are for, I think a discussion item would be the best, but we just might have to wait until September to schedule it because we're pretty heavily booked right now.
Okay, that sounds good for a discussion item, but it seems like then there's another part of it, which is how are we as HLC members going to have some members of ours that are designated to a discussion so that there can be a proposal and whether it takes staff time or not, but so there can be at least a letter or a proposal from HLC to City Council.
Correct, but I think the next step would then be, we would have the discussion item to strategize reaching out to City Council, and then City Council would direct us to start a subcommittee, I think would be the sequencing of
Okay,
the
so
process.
let's start, that sounds, however we end up getting to it, that sounds fine. So let's just start with getting an agendized item in September. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Yeah, that
And that
sounds
way we
good.
can at
Let's
least
just-
talk about it.
And last time, Councilwoman Snedden was here, and so she heard, I've spoken to her about it, and she seems to be supportive. So maybe there's a possibility of working.
Oh, yeah, and actually asking her, Councilwoman
For her
Stanton, to be
Our-
there for sure at the discussion group too.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Absolutely.
because that would be a great way of
Yeah.
folding in council. Thank you.
Okay, I had a couple, and I'm sorry,
Yeah, keep going.
The other, on the same line, one of the things that was talked about last time when we were talking about the Anapamu trees was about, and Councilwoman Snedden brought this up, which I really appreciated in her public comment, about the discrepancy between how landmark trees are dealt with when they're on private property versus when they're on public property, and that we should address that and get that corrected so that HLC is involved in both applications,
Yeah,
or
again,
situations, I should say.
that really was interesting because council can direct the city attorney's office to edit the ordinance. That's an ordinance adjustment that comes from council assigning priorities to the city attorney's office. So it was interesting that she brought it up here when it's really more in her court than ours.
So,
Okay.
We
yeah,
don't,
again, I
we
just-
don't really tell the attorneys to do anything. And for those of you
Well,
who
we
do
do.
know, it took us 10 years to get them to change the historic resources ordinance. So it's no joke to get the attorneys to change an ordinance, and it will take a long time. It just doesn't happen. It's labor intensive, and they
Well, we
are,
can- we can
their
hold that
dockets are
thought.
full.
Yeah.
Their dockets are full. So that's
So-
kind of like a pie in the sky. Like, that would be great, but it's going to take a lot. But it comes from like,
And it might be a question of when else to bundle it in, when they're changing ordinances there might be other things that are being changed. at the same time with the historic resources ordinance.
Right. So it might be something that sometimes council has a lot more power than.
Yep, gotcha.
So my question is, how do we not let this fall through the cracks? What should we do? What do we do?
I don't know how to get anything on the attorney's agendas.
Can we have it
so
as an
maybe
agenda
you
item where
can-
we can agree to some kind of a letter
Well,
or
I
something?
think that part of it was fairly basic and agreed on by everyone of like, yeah, we want this to be protected. So I wouldn't mind, and maybe we can co-write a letter and then just explain what we're hoping for and pushing it forward to city council, so at least it gets memorialized and that we have something to point to as like, this is the documented request. And then as time goes on, we can see about how that might actually be worked into it without a major thing.
And since it is council, perhaps, and since Councilwoman Sneddon brought it to our attention so clearly, perhaps we can reach out to her.
That's a good idea.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
that'd be a way to short-circuit it and get it just taken care of.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
get
then,
on email.
just two last
Yeah.
little things, and sorry, we do have a lot of things.
Yeah.
So the other one is I just continue to request that I think, the work that HLC does is so important, and I think that having agendized a discussion specifically about, the responsibilities of HLC, not just for us, but for the public to understand that, what our job is and what we're trying to do and what we are supposed to do per the city charter. I think it would be very, very helpful. So I would just like to put that out there as a request to have, at some point, a reminder of the importance of the work that this commission does. And then finally, on the, and this will, Commissioner Lenvik isn't here, but on the State Street Advisory, I'm not sure we ever had a final sort of summary. Are we going to be having, or is that going to be reported in the subcommittees about
Yeah, I think that'll be-
SSAC? Do you want to
yeah.
wait until
Yeah,
then?
let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay, that's all I had for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other announcements, future agenda items, et cetera? All right, let's go on to item F, subcommittee reports, subcommittee reports. So do we want to kick off with the SSAC? So Commissioner Lenvik isn't here to report back, but I can try a shot at a quick summary of where things are, and according to what happened there, because I was there too. And then you can chime in too, Commissioner Ensberg, because I know you were there. I'm not sure of who else was there as well, so if you want to chime in with the updates. But basically, the second half of the State Street Advisory Commission meeting took place. The first half was a month ago, and then it wasn't finished, so they split it and they broke and they came together and then had discussion and voted straw poll votes. There was 10 or 12 or something straw poll votes, and to give at least see where there was agreement or split on all different topics of transportation-related and circulation-related items for State Street. And so those were a series of votes, and as I understand it, that is, in general, that's going to, it's going to go to City Council I think it's going to be towards the beginning of September. They're meeting with those votes and the next discussion at council, and then going back to, depending on what all that happens, going to continue on in its process. So based on the feedback. So that's the update that I know.
Okay, I know we're not discussing, but just since we took this from that other item, will this come back to HLC? And for some reason, and it could just be the flurry of everything that's going on, it's hard to keep track of everything. I don't recall that we ever, and maybe we did, but I don't recall that we ever kind of circled back. We had a meeting, and then we were running out of time, and we had to move it, continue it, and I'm not sure we ever continued it and got back to it for final input from the commission.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, through the chair to the rest of the commission. So the last meeting that you had on the State Street Master Plan, you did put together a complete list of recommendations for the State Street Advisory Committee, and that was recorded and was included in those minutes, and I believe distributed to the State Street Advisory Committee. And now that we've had both parts of this second State Street Advisory Committee meeting, the State Street Master Plan staff will be returning for another discussion with HLC. It's just we've had some really packed agendas, so I anticipate sometime in September they will come back and we'll have another discussion item about that to debrief on the most recent two meetings.
Thank you for that. What was the date of those minutes, of the recommendations list?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think HLC was in May, I want to say, maybe beginning of May-ish, maybe late April, somewhere in there. Because it was right after the State Street Advisory Commission saw all the renderings, and then we reacted. Then we reacted with the list, and then the State Street Advisory Commission meeting this last time saw new updated renderings, and then that got split into two. So, and we haven't discussed those at all. So that's, I think, where it is. And then I know that it is things are definitely going to be going out to all the groups and commissions and planning commission, et cetera, as things go forward in October, for sure. October and November, there's going to be a lot of review time. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the general outline. So.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. Any other subcommittee reports?
Yes, that, what I was going to mention before about the interim group, the outdoor dining standards that we've been working on, that we were trying to, I think what we wanted to do is try to agendize it so that the rest of the commission could see the document that we have. We shared it, but we didn't really get a chance to go through it
Have a
fully.
discussion,
But we're
yeah.
trying to, wrap it up and get it to council so that it can be an attachment to the outdoor dining,
Ordinance or whatever?
yeah, ordinance, so that it gives them the, the detail of the FF&E, the furniture and the, finishes and equipment that's really important to be also part of that.
Yes.
So,
So through the chair to the rest of the commission, we will definitely agendize that discussion item as soon as we have availability. And that's going to be a priority to agendize that discussion item before anything else, because we do have applications coming in for outdoor dining and parklets and things like that. And so we really want to get that discussion item out there and those standards nailed down before applicants start coming in, so you all know how to review the projects.
Great.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other subcommittee reports? All right. We are on to item one.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, the designation subcommittee met on July 15th. We did not report last week. It was just over the Mills Act mostly, and one designation, and they'll be all coming to you next week, or in 2 weeks. So
Okay.
you'll have a hefty
Yeah. We'll
meeting.
run the gauntlet. That'll be.
Yes, you and I should
That'll
talk
be-
before that meeting about how you want to address the 11 Mills Act contracts.
Gotcha.
How you want to, if you want to hear them all at once and then do a motion and things like that.
Okay. Sounds good. Everyone bring your Camel pack of coffee. All right.
Cookies.
And cookies. Sugar and caffeine. All right. Okay, so we are on to now, finally, item one. We are running almost 20 minutes late, so we'll kind of keep things moving here. This is archaeology report for 102 West De La Guerra Street. The project is not a historic site or with a historic district, but is adjacent to 101 West Cannon Perdido Street, the telephone building, a contributing historic resource to El Pueblo Viejo, proposal to construct a new 5-story multifamily residential building and a 4-story self-storage building with a basement. Requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 archaeological resources report prepared by Provenience Group, Inc. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, is there the archaeologists here? Oh, yes, come on forward.
Don't be afraid, we don't bite.
All right.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. So if you, oh, turn this on. here for you. And then, so if you wouldn't mind stating your name for the record, introducing yourself, and doing a quick summary of the conclusion of your report.
Good afternoon, HLC staff. My name is Carol DiNardo. The name of my company is Provenience Group, and I prepared the report, archaeological report for 102 West De La Guerra Street. Basically, we did find a few artifacts, not a whole lot because most of the lot is paved. But the results of our research showed that there had been Hispanic, Hispanic American, American period, all the way through early 20th century occupation of that lot. And what was interesting is we were able to document one family from 1870 all the way through early 20th century living in that location, and they had a soda works company there. There was a well, a windmill, a bunch of buildings, and most of that structure was there for numerous years. And so there's a good potential for finding historic foundations, privies, historic trash dumps, and other types of historic artifacts that would be really important to understand a little bit more about early occupation of Santa Barbara.
All right, and then your recommendation was for?
Phase 2 testing.
Great.
So,
All right. Is that, and assuming that concludes your quick summary, then, okay.
Yes.
Great. All right, we'll open public comment now. Any member of the public wishing to comment on the archaeology report? Room, not seeing anyone.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we also did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for any questions or comments?
The only observation I have, since the archaeological report is not available to the public, it's challenging to understand why we would have public comment on a document they can't read.
That's true.
But that notwithstanding, I don't have any particular questions.
All right. Is everyone feeling comfortable making a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the report as submitted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Ensberg, under discussion?
I just had a question about, this is just for the historic structure, or the historical archaeological report. Will we be seeing this project when it's proposed? Does it come to us? I mean, I see that it's not a historic site, but since it's in the within a historic.
I'm seeing staff shaking head no.
It went to ABR for its first.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
just to-
I remember.
Review.
Yeah, through the chair to the rest of the commission, just to clarify, it is right on the edge of EPV, so it's not
Yeah.
in EPV, and it is adjacent to the historic building, but
Right.
because it's not a historic site or within a historic district, the project will not go to HLC. But the ABR is aware of its adjacency to the historic resource, so they will have to be sensitive to it when they approve the project.
It's only here because it's an art study.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are on to item 2. We're still 20 minutes behind. Actually, no, we're 15. Okay, we made it a little bit. Yeah, so this is a continued item for project design approval and final approval for 800 Alvarado Place. This is El Encanto Hotel Historic District. It's a designated landmark located in the Hillside Design District, construction 1913 to 1930 by Sewell, Ray, Eaton, Edwards, Plunkett, and Howell. I didn't know they were a big firm. In the craftsman vernacular Spanish colonial revival style. Proposed for a new 1,900 square foot pergola with retractable cover on the existing outdoor dining terrace of a non-historic building at the site. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings and Hillside Design District findings are required. Project was last reviewed on July 17th, 2024. All right, so, and do we want, and that was reviewed at consent. And do we want to pull up any notes?
Through the
minutes?
chair to the rest of the commission, I've got the motion right here. It was continued 2 weeks to the full commission with a comment that the commission is concerned about a significant addition in a historic district and the compatibility of the proposed materials.
Okay. All right, so with that, if you would introduce yourself for the record and walk us through the presentation. You have 15 minutes. You don't have to take the whole time. You know the drill.
Good afternoon, and Viva la Fiesta. My name is Joe Androlitis with Androlitis Mix and Architects, and I'm here to present a pergola for El Encanto Hotel. Not for sure if the commission members are familiar with the space, but it's a deck out in front of the dining area. You can see these existing photos. That is underutilized by El Encanto for several reasons. One, we've had 2 very wet winters, and then 2, we've had 2 very soggy, foggy springs and early summers. And now we have a nice hot deck in this warm summer heat. So given those 3 conditions, there's not a lot of productive use on the sun deck. So El Encanto would like to add a pergola over the sun deck, and the inspiration for the design of the pergola is looking at the pergola that is on the second floor, which you see some photos for down below here. It's a simple wood structure with 6x6 posts, has a 6x8 perimeter beam, and then another kind of trellis level on top of that. So we use that as our inspiration for the pergola. This is the location of the sun deck we're talking about. This is the sun deck and the column layout. The dashed lines are the beam members. The columns would run so that they're centered over the brick columns on the lower floor. This is a kind of existing and proposed elevation, south elevation. So the upper elevation is the existing condition, and then the lower elevation is the proposed pergola. And if I zoom in here, you can see how the pergola is mimicking the pergola up above. So this is the existing pergola here. This is the proposed pergola below. This is the west elevation showing the sun deck here, and then the new pergola here. The columns stop short of a raised planter at the very south end of the sun deck. This is the east elevation. I'll zoom in here. You can see the pergola on the second floor, and here's the proposed pergola on the sun deck. Did some perspectives for you. These are the existing conditions of the sun deck. And the next sheet shows the proposed pergola. Next sheet. This is the proposed system. It's a prefabricated system. I think this is an Italian company. It has an integrated retractable roof that's waterproof. and it has an internal gutter system. So it's a very clean, simple system that we're proposing for the pergola. And then we are adding some additional detailing so that the pergola system looks more like the pergola on the second floor. So the main frame of the pergola from the manufacturer is aluminum, 6x6 aluminum with 6x8 beams, and then we're adding some top and bottom trim, and then another layer of the trellis that's identical to the trellis on the second floor to mimic that detail. So here's a detail elevation of that column detail with the 4x6 rafter at about 24 inches on center. And then this is a section detail showing a cut through the aluminum beam system that houses the internal gutter system and the track for the retractable roof. And then this is a typical rafter tail that is a copy of the one on the second floor. This is the base detail. I have a sample of the fabric for the pergola above. Everything's going to be white to match the building. And that's the fabric. And then I have a brochure kind of showing the underside of the pergola system. It's just that, yeah, it's just this page. That page and this page are the model that we're using.
And so all the roof, except for the ribs, all the ceiling, I should say, except for the ribs, is fabric.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's a,
And it retracts. So that runs through our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
all right, let's go to public comment then. Any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item? All right, not seeing any.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yep, and then Commissioner McClure looked like he had a question too.
I don't expect this is visible from any neighbors, because the neighbor would be the hotel itself,
No, I
right?
mean, I work across the street at the Riviera Business Park, so you can't even really see it from there.
Okay,
You might be able to see it from below, but there's a lot of trees in the way, so it's mainly visible on the property.
yeah, okay. And what's the longevity of that material, that roofing material?
Is it this fabric you mean?
It's a pretty hefty warranty, I think. I don't know if you recall it, 10 years?
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Commissioner
Mr.
McClure?
Chair, are you confident that you can paint with proper priming, you can paint the aluminum and the wood to make it look identical? Confident?
Yeah, the aluminum is going to be powder coated, a custom powder coat color to match the building, so it'll be the exact same color.
But no difference in reflectivity or?
No, I think, if you look at the brochure, I think it's shiny, but we're gonna have the same paint finish, whether it's semi-gloss or egg.
So you're not worried?
No.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes, thank you. What is the detail, the rafter tail, what is that made out of, and how is it attached?
It's made out of wood. I can go back to the detail. I don't know, we haven't engineered the exact attachment, but it's probably best just to look at the existing photo, because we're just going to replicate that. So if I zoom in on that, I don't know if I have a good picture. Oh, here we go. So, I mean, that's the rafter tail. That's what.
So it's going to be wood to
gonna be
match
wood.
that one, and then
Exactly.
somehow it's attached?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
And tied to that, can you go to your drawing detail of it? Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, zoom into the bottom.
Bottom one?
Yeah. So just trying to make sure I'm understanding the components. So So it's wood posts with wood capital, and then wood rafter tail, and then wood cross beam that I'm seeing with the X.
Or are the posts aluminum?
This post is aluminum here.
Okay.
This is a wood cap.
Okay.
This is an aluminum beam. This is a wood beam. And then this is a perimeter wood beam here. This is the rafter tail.
Wood rafter tail.
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole layer here is all wood on the top. The entire top layer is wood. So if you look at the existing photos, it's a double layer system. So they have a perimeter beam that's mitered at the corners. And you can kind of see it here. So that this is a perimeter beam miter at the corners, which is similar to what the aluminum beam's doing. And then there's another layer up above.
So your
which
whole
is gonna
upper
be my
layer is
wood
going to be
layer,
wood.
and then they just
your-
attach these rafter tails all the way around. So they're probably back nailed or something, or screwed from the behind to get the rafter tails. Now we don't have this spacing in between because we have the canvas retractable roof. So
And do you think the capitals going from posts in the new proposed is post is aluminum, capitals wood, and then the first layer of beams is aluminum. Do you think that will be a visual issue in terms of the eye picking up that like aluminum, wood, aluminum? Will that be too much alternating, or did you consider just eliminating the capitals and just having it simpler from that aspect trellis? And then that way you have aluminum, and then switch to wood for the upper?
I prefer to have the capitals. I mean, I'd like to have a very smooth wood finish. So it feels like the same as the column, so you don't perceive a difference.
Okay.
So, and
Okay, so you think you can get there
I
with
think,
that?
yeah.
Okay. All right, other questions? All right, discussion or comments?
I guess I do have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Do we have a section that shows one of the aluminum intermediate joists, let's call it, within the wood layer above that? Or am I misunderstanding?
So, no, I don't have that detail, and let me see if a roof plan would kind of help here. That beam only runs along the perimeter.
Okay, so when you refer to the top layer, that's just around the perimeter. There aren't intermediate wood.
And I'll take that back. They stack on on these vertical members.
Okay, and do we have a cross-section through that somewhere?
I don't have a cross-section.
Okay.
So it seems like, if we're looking at this brochure and then looking at your detail, and actually if you can flip to your detail, seems like because these ribs, whatever they are, that the fabric goes between.
You kind of see it better here. You can see the stacking.
Okay.
So it's at that seam between the aluminum and the wood beams, that is where you find the ribs with the
Yeah, I mean, there's a
fabric.
track inside the side of these aluminum beams that
Yep.
that thing runs on.
At the
And it's
very
right
top
at the
of it.
top.
Yep.
And then
Okay.
the canvas, these aluminum ribs are slightly curved so that the water can go to the sides.
Oh, interesting, okay.
And then everything gets drained through the inside of the beams. And then it comes down the column. So there's no extra gutters, or that's what's nice about the system. It's really clean. It looks like a trellis majority of the time. And that's what I liked about it. So.
Cool. All right. Any other questions under discussion? What are people feeling? It's to us for project design approval and final approval. And then the project compatibility findings and hillside design district findings are required. So how's everyone feeling? They're feeling like this is a adequate solution?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it's an elegant solution, and I'm all for it. I think that we're very lucky to have the owners of that property keep it and maintain as it has. It's an extraordinary place. And I think this makes that whole deck more accessible during even bad weather. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Other
I agree.
comments?
I'll make a motion for project design approval and final approval.
Second.
All right. we have
And
a
then the
motion and a
litany
second.
of things I've got to read.
Yeah.
It's going to take
All
us
right,
half
so
an hour.
do we want to have discussion before or after? Do we read the litany? Oh, let's have the discussion for, normally I make you read the litany first, but let's just,
Are we finished with discussion?
no.
I
No, no,
I
Up
think
to
it's
discussion.
supportable, so I'm just
Okay.
making a motion to
Yeah,
move it
so does
along.
anyone feel it's not supportable? And if
Chair
so,
Crumbine?
why? Make your arguments, yep.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to say that I don't support it. I don't think it's in the, I totally understand what the goal is, what's trying to be done here, but I don't think it's in the spirit of the little cottage. I don't feel that it really meets that, and I think it doesn't, it feels like a roof to me. It does not feel, there's no airflow between when the thing is closed. It's very closed off like a roof. I don't think of it like a trellis at all, really. So I'm having issues with the material, with the aluminum, and I'm having issues with the overall size and the proportions of it. So it just doesn't feel, I guess I'll use the word diminutive, you know, in keeping with what El Encanto is all about. And sometimes we have bad weather and sometimes we have good weather, but, you know, being connected with the breezes coming through and seeing sort of the ruffle of the fabric, which you would not have in this situation. So I'm very sorry, but I would not support it.
So on a similar vein, I think, I'm on the fence about it. I think it is, the aluminum part of it is, I think it's going to be hard to get the finish to feel right. I think this is showing it very shiny, and I think you'll get closer with the other. And I also think that the connection between the unopened, the non-open, which is good for in terms of shielding weather, but not as good for a traditional look or a historic look, is the negative on it. I think it's sort of on the border for me, and they're trying with various ways to get it to work. I would be curious as to whether wrapping it in wood, the columns, at least, would help to actually, because I do think that even if you do a really smooth finish of the wood, your eye will still feel the difference between the wood and the aluminum. So I think it's one of those gray areas for me. I think that, yeah, one of the reasons that helps me think it might be okay a little more is that it's very difficult to see from, it isn't the most public areas, and it's very difficult to see, which isn't the only reason, but at least it makes it for the much more minor, much more of a minor area compared to the main public views and the main entry views. So, so I'm sort of on the fence. Any other discussion? All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll let you do the litany now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Consistent with design standards, it is consistent with our design standards. It is compatible with the architecture of the neighborhood and the building that it's attached to. Its size, mass, bulk, height, and scale, I believe, is appropriate. It's sensitive to itself being a resource. Public views are not impacted. And use of open space and landscaping is an appropriate use. Hold on a second, let me read it. This project does not impact natural topography protection issues and doesn't change the building scale.
All right. Okay, so we've got, and the seconder agrees with those?
Yes.
Litany, okay. All right, motion and a second. Any last discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
No.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Staff, I have a question. I would rather abstain, but I guess I can't really abstain unless I have a conflict, correct? Yeah. I will vote no.
Chair Grumbine?
No.
Motion passes with a 3-5 vote.
All right, and then Commissioner Ensberg, if you could state your reason, Vice Chair House as well.
Yes, well, for the reasons I already stated, I feel that it's out of proportion. I don't feel that the spirit of it is meets the historic design of the El Encanto building. And the materials, I think, also are not in keeping with the historic building.
All right, Vice Chair House?
I struggle with it, even though I saw something similar in Rome, which was a very contemporary, expanding covering on a historic building, which was interesting, but we don't do things that way in Santa Barbara. And so I just don't feel that the perception of this feels traditional.
Yeah, and for me, it was especially the materials of the aluminum, and then some of the form of the way in which the fabric sealed off that I thought wasn't as good as it could be. So, or should be. All right. Well, thank you very much. So you got your approval, and this is appealable to City Council within 10 days. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we are back on track, it looks like. Yeah, 2:30. All right. So we are on track. We're item 3, 12 East Carrillo Street. This is a new item for concept review. Contributing historic resource to the EPV, the Chamber of Commerce building was constructed in 1927 in the Italianate Mediterranean Revival style. Proposed new infill housing within the existing building, including 12 units as well as 2 accessory dwelling units. Exterior alterations include a new vestibule in the rear, site work, window restoration, a height increase to the existing elevator shaft, relocated exit and window conversion to match adjacent buildings, as well as new French doors, Juliet balcony, arched entrance, vent with wrought iron decor, windows, light fixtures, and trash enclosure. All right.
Again.
I just have a quick statement before.
Okay, great. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and minor alteration findings will be required for project design approval. All right, to staff.
I did include a memo to the Secretary of Interior standards. It does meet the Secretary of Interior standards. It's a really straightforward project, but one of the best parts, I think, if you saw that the original drawings have a center arched window opening, and that was removed at some point and closed, and they're reopening that. So it's actually going to benefit the facade of the building. So that's your CEQA analysis
All right.
so far.
Thank you. All right, welcome. Introduce yourselves for the record, please.
Farah Halgalaf.
Brian
Cornell?
What? Oh, okay.
So,
He goes by first name only.
yeah, this is a really cool project. I have to admit, before we started working
Oh,
on
and you
this-
do have 15 minutes, and time is starting now.
Got it. I actually did not know this was built by the Chamber of Commerce as their offices and meeting room back in 1926. July of 26 is the date on the drawings, and they're really pretty cool drawings.
And this is AKA Hunt's China, isn't it?
It was, and so in the 70s, Chuck Schmant remodeled it, changed the front facade that we can see there, that middle door that Nicole was mentioning, got the solid transom and then a double door, and then they did an addition in the back, which you see in the lower right, or the lower left, I'm sorry, right there, which was a freight elevator down to the basement and a loading dock and a rear entrance. And then they actually converted part of this to a residential unit at the time, which I think one of the relatives or maybe the mom lived there. And then it was Hunt's China for a long time. So this is the existing condition, and I think I can blow this up, yeah. So you can kind of see what the existing back addition was. It was interesting, the property line used to run right there along the building face, and then they expanded the property into the alley to facilitate that addition that Chuck Schmant did whenever it was. Whoops. See if I can. So this is what we are proposing. Actually, I think I've got a bigger one, yeah. So we're keeping the steps, we're keeping all of this in back up to that property line and the planting that's in the alley now. It's likely that we'll sort of enhance that planting once we get around to it. But we are engaging the elevator that was put in. That was actually a shaft that was put in by Chuck Schmant back in the 70s, but they never put an elevator in it. So we are going to actually put an elevator in. We're probably going to have to adjust the shaft size, unfortunately, because it doesn't quite meet current standards. And then we are improving that, as you see at the lower portion of this, we're putting in the trash enclosure, and then we are improving what is a pretty dangerous situation with that stair, which just sort of dumps out with steps at the threshold onto the alley, turning that basically right here and having it exit out. So the plan then is to convert the whole thing to residential units. This is the first floor and the second floor, and what we're building are lofts within this because the ceiling heights are so high. And then this is, basically, this is the existing condition, so that's the Schmant addition in the back. And then this shows the section utilizing the volume to create those loft units on the second floor. And did I miss the?
And pardon my
There it
interruption through
is,
the
yeah.
chair to the applicant. You did upload a supplemental set after the agenda was posted. So if you hover over the Adobe icon at the bottom, you'll see that that other set is uploaded if you want to present those elevations.
Right there. Okay. So I'll start over. No. But these are the old drawings. So you can see what the elevation looked like and how it had a single door along Carrillo, and then what the back elevation looked like at the alley. And had some, it's typical, right? You have about a 6-sheet set of drawings, and the detail is all, it's all here in that entrance, which was for St. Barbara for the Chamber of Commerce. And then this is the Schmant addition. I thought something was wrong. I've already gone through all of this. So this is the original Schmant addition off the back. And then they also got rid of 2 of these windows, large windows, because they dropped a ceiling in there. So we're taking all of that back to the original, per the original drawings. And then this is that new rear addition. So I've got the elevator extruding, kind of just really keeping it somewhat similar, but cleaning it up and making it a little bit more interesting. And this then is a render of how that back will look, and then the redo of the front. So I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. This might be a record for you. That's
I
under
know.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll open it up for public comment now. Anyone in the room wishing to comment on this? All right, not seeing anyone?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, great. To the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
I heard Vice Chair House first, and then someone else.
I'll be quick.
Commissioner Drury.
I think you said that the elevator shaft gets extended, but it doesn't extend above the top roof. Is that correct?
Correct. This
Okay.
is the extension. And what I meant when I said extension in plan, it's not quite big enough, so we're going to have to take
so the height
one
doesn't
wall
get
and,
extended.
well, the height does get
Okay,
extended
but it
because.
doesn't go above the top roof.
Correct. Yeah, it'll stop, that little square window that you see next to that elevator shaft is an existing vent opening that we're turning into a window for one of those upper units.
Okay. Your turn.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury.
Mr. Chair, so where are the AUDs?
The AUDs? Oh, well, that's a good question. We're over density, so we're going to have to claim 2 of these as ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So the state law.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, the state
ADUs,
law
yeah.
allows you to do 25% of your base density in ADUs. But we will actually have to remove 2 of the units for the initial plan check and then submit another set of plans for those 2 units to be put
That
in
works.
place.
What are the plate heights of the proposal?
Our sections probably show it, don't they? Let's see. So this side, oh God, this makes me do math.
Yeah.
So you can see it's something like 14 feet at the first floor, and then the second floor is considerable.
10
It's,
feet approximately.
yeah. You know, one of the,
Total plate looks like it's 35 or something, is that right? Look, I saw
overall.
the existing,
Yeah.
yeah, overall. And then you're not changing that. It's only on the back that little bit
Correct.
gets changed.
No, good.
Yeah, and I should, I mean, something that is actually, for what it's worth, I mean, it's interesting, and I'll try not to take much time here, but if I can find the section. So you can see in the lower right, let me blow this up. I love that I can do this on the screen if I can use my
I didn't know that
hands.
was touch sensitive.
So on the lower right, you can see there these huge steel trusses. And actually, I have to say, we are benefiting from the fact that this building was built incredibly well on concrete and steel. So it is a type 3 construction, which allows us to not have to deal with the egressable emergency escape windows in the code. But what we're doing is we're basically, the walls of the new units are at each one of those trusses. So before there were ties at the bottom chord which defined this vaulted ceiling, and so we're going to basically support those trusses by the individual walls of the unit, and then are able to take advantage of that additional height to create those lofts. So it's,
Cool.
it's Lord lucky.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, other questions?
Yes, Chair
Commissioner
Gordon.
Ensberg.
So you're putting in a new floor for the third floor, right?
Correct.
And so then that, how is that being dealt with where the windows occur? They just a spandrel going across?
think they're on just one side
No,
of the
they're
space.
all back of those windows.
Oh, they are?
So if I
Yeah.
go to the section, you can
go.
see that the windows, the big windows
Oh,
are
I
here.
see, I see.
And then the little loft, and again, then
got
I
it.
have the advantage that I don't have to provide an egressable window for that loft bedroom space.
Excellent, okay, good. Then, and then one other tiny question is, the building now is kind of a beigey, pinky color. And I see that your renderings look like white, and is that, maybe talk about the colors if you know.
I honestly had not thought about us changing the color, but I'm open to your thoughts on that. I don't know what it was originally.
Can we see the
mean,
the
I-
photograph of the original, of the building as it is now?
Sure.
And I guess a question to that, do you know yet if you're going to be repainting the whole building?
I'm pretty sure we will
Yeah,
end
we're
up
asking.
probably painting it when it's all said and done, because it's been a long time that it's been painted. But I think what we'll do is do some little scratch tests and see if we can find what the original color was.
Yeah. It seems to me like, because it really is a beautiful building, and the color doesn't do it justice. So, I think there's some opportunities for you, and especially with that coining on the corners, to maybe emphasize that. But yeah, do some,
Investigation.
I guess we're not making statements just yet, but anyway.
Sounds like you're rolling into it.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, any
Okay,
other
thank you.
questions? Questions? All right, well, that'll be our first statement then, on painting or on investigating the color of the original, and also even color of the original if there were multiple, color or colors, if there were multiple ones that they may have done in the coining differently.
And the windows most likely were a different color than the body,
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, and maybe check
and we
that,
could probably
at least
find
in the
that out
front.
as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Chair,
yes.
just in case I wanted to move down there, how big are the units?
Those big windows.
Do you remember the square footages?
The average unit size is 718 or something.
726 is the average size.
Yeah. We just updated in the supplement
Yeah.
though.
But the lofts are probably
900.
900. Thank you.
The size of my house.
Mine too. Thank you.
All right, other questions?
Well,
Or
are
other
we in comments now?
Comments, yeah. Thoughts on this?
Well, thank you very much for this work, and I am just really excited about this project. I think it's fantastic, and I think you guys have done a beautiful job. It's a perfect example of adaptive reuse, and you've just done a stellar job of laying it out in a really great way. So I'm very excited about it, and as I mentioned, study the color. I think it could be even just more spectacular. The fact that you're restoring these elements that was mentioned earlier and that Ms. Hernandez brought out is really fantastic. So I'm very, very excited, and I think it's a really good example moving forward of adaptive reuse. And it's also good news that, some of these buildings really are able to be worked with. So that's great. I also I like that you're doing some landscaping in the back. And one of the things that we've been talking about as a city is how to enhance existing paseos and plazas. So there's a great opportunity, that what looks like an alley right now could be really a very exciting space. And then the back, you've already added some landscape back there, but if there's some more that could possibly be done, that would be great too. And then finally, let this original set of, how many sheets was it?
6.
Be an example to aspire to. I will just say to the city of Santa Barbara.
Good luck.
Tell that to the state, actually.
Tell that to the
They're going the-
contractor who
they're
would
going-
then send me 8,000 RFIs.
Anyway, thank you so much, and great job. I 100% support this project.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair House.
what she said.
There we go.
Copy that. But also, I have a question. In the project description, it sounds like there's a new Juliet balcony. I don't remember if you touched on that.
Yeah, that's at the rear. We're going to kind of try to match the detailing
Oh, there it is.
that is on
Okay.
the front, so we're putting that on the rear. So we're going to try and do the same little detail that's on the front.
Okay.
At like 24 inches high.
Yeah, right.
A baby
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Especially on this back elevation, which seems to be the one they're changing the most. Is everyone comfortable with where things are going right now?
Gorgeous.
Yeah. I think it's done a
in good
really,
hands.
really
Yeah.
good job.
I would move to approve.
Yeah, we can't.
Oh, we can't? For
put it on
final
consent.
approval right now.
Actually, we could put it on consent, actually, if we wanted to.
So simple. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
And there's so much details are being matched as well.
I'll let you know about the color.
Yeah, and the color investigation. Okay, well, that's under discussion. Are people feeling comfortable with it coming back on consent?
I'm comfortable
You
with
could make
that.
a motion to continue it to return on consent.
Yeah.
Say that.
Okay, so this is, well, now, we will have to make project compatibility findings and minor alteration findings.
At the time of
At the time,
PDA.
they'll be required.
Steve's
Is there-
gotten really good at that. He's got it memorized.
Is there any, is this going to planning commission or anything else?
No.
Okay, so it seems like they don't need our comments as well, and he'll be able to make those findings. So if you're comfortable with making the motion to,
Were there any
I
comments you wanted
second
to
it.
include in the motion, or?
so I'll summarize the comments that we have so far. So, so number one, it's a beautiful job and a great example of adaptive reuse, and we thank the architects and the owners for such a sensitive treatment of a great historic resource. For the landscape plan to continue to develop, as small as it is, for it to continue to develop, and that we appreciate including the landscape and a Paseo-esque portion of the property. And then for painting to be, investigate what the original colors were, and with in favor of going towards what those would be. And then for this to be reviewed, all the details as mentioned that match, and that this to be reviewed on, or to come back to us on consent. So I think that would be the
Yes.
sort of comments in motion.
And, Mr. Chair, you might also add a note that it seemed like we were all comfortable with how they treated the rear of the building.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah, seemed comfortable with how we treated the rear of the building, and very thankful for the restoration on the front.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. The Paseo, is that city property, or is that, oh, okay. It'd be great if it could get improved somehow.
Well,
but-
I initially wanted to, but unfortunately, in these days of stormwater management, if I tried to touch it, I'd have to do stormwater management of the entire city property.
Build a bathtub underneath.
So this is really a fine line where we just can't touch anything. Yeah. It's too bad, though. It would be
Yay,
nice.
stormwater
It's still got, well,
management.
actually, it's the one place in the city where you still see the old stamped pattern that was State Street forever, which is sort of that, whatever that, what's that shape that,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
it's some
That
kind of
Julio
a,
did.
yeah, yeah,
All right,
Historic in its own nature now.
Yeah.
probably, right? Okay, thank you so much.
all right. So we've got a motion for indefinite continuance to consent with all those comments.
Yes.
All right, and the seconder, who is the seconder?
I was the seconder.
Commissioner Drury, you're good with that?
Yes.
All right. Under discussion, any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yep.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Oh,
All
that
right.
just feels so good.
That was a good one. That was a very good one. Well done. All right.
We have a problem.
Yeah, I know. We're going too fast now. Okay, so we'll adjourn for, let's see, is the applicant in the room for the next item? We can't start it yet, but is the applicant, okay. So we'll adjourn for 10 minutes, and then that's the earliest we can
Are you
adjourn.
gonna run for a coffee?
I am. On to item 4. This is for a one-time pre-application review.
City TV back on?
Oh, yes, City TV. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
All right, so no final, sorry, this is not the right one. Okay, so for 835 Alberta Avenue. This is listed on the Historic Resources Inventory, constructed in 1923 in the Craftsman style. Proposal for additions to the existing 1,000 square foot, one-story single-family residence, including 141 square feet first floor addition, 29 square foot second story addition, and 2 second floor decks. Project will require staff hearing officer approval of a setback modification for the secondary front setback encroachment and open yard modification for a reduction of the non-conforming open yard. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and major alteration findings will be required for project design approval. All right, so welcome.
Thank you.
If you would state your name for the record.
Sure. Make sure that microphone's on.
Oh, yeah, press that. There we go.
Chair Grumbine, can I interrupt
Oh, yeah,
with
sure.
a few staff comments? Pardon the interruption to the applicant. So to Chair Grumbine and the commissioners, Carly Ernest, Assistant Planner, and as you noted, the application in front of you today is a pre-application here for a design review consultation. That means no motion or formal action is needed today, but staff is looking for comments on the overall site design and aesthetic appropriateness of the additions. And as you noted in the project description, as it's currently designed, it will require 2 modifications. One being a setback modification for the setback encroachment into the secondary front setback, and also an open yard modification for a reduction of the open yard. And just to note, these are pre-application level plans, so when or if a formal planning application is submitted, they will be required to show open yard and solar access correctly. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now if you could introduce yourselves for the record.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Villegas with Dark Moon Building Design and Engineering. And with me today is Dave Botford. He's one of the owners. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should have mentioned, you all have 15 minutes to go walk us through your design.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Great. We did want, we were, how do I move this? Okay, there we go. So this is a fairly small lot. It's approximately 5,000 square feet on the lot itself. It has a single car garage and a 2-bedroom house that's pretty small. And we did want to increase the usable space and make the kitchen a little bit more usable on here. You can see from the site plans itself, we are keeping basically the same setback requirements on the secondary front on Gillespie there, and so we're not encroaching any more than the existing houses right there for the setback over there. We're also keeping away from the front of the house on Alberta, and that does 2 things. One is it keeps the second story away from the chimney with a 10-foot setback, that's a requirement, but also steps back the second story so that way we can keep pretty much the same facade of the Craftsman style house the same. And so we are moving the addition towards the north property line, so which would be on the left side of this property here. This plan just shows the existing floor plan of the house and also what the demo that we're going to do on the inside of it. We're keeping as many windows as we can, existing windows. Oops, move this over here. So on the first floor, again, we are pretty much keeping the front facade as it is, except that we are extending out on the bedroom on the left-hand property side there a little bit. And there was a window placement that we are going to just be moving, so it is a Craftsman window, but we're moving it so that way it matches symmetrically with the other window on the other side relative to the edge of that wall there. So we're keeping that. We're also keeping the existing front door. That's a Craftsman door as well. Yeah. Am I not doing this right? Try to go to the next one. Yeah. So here is the elevations, the existing elevations. So the front elevation is the one on Alberta, and and the one that is the existing southeast elevation is the one facing Gillespie. So those are the two that are going to be more prominent. The proposed elevation on Alberta is the one that's number one above here, and so we are keeping the same roof pitch that we had on the existing, and so when we are extending out the first floor, we rather than like canting over with like a different sloped roof, we are keeping the same roof pitch, and we're adding the same element that it had before with the decorative gable vent and everything there. And again, we're moving that window so that way it matches symmetrically with the other window that we aren't moving over there. And the second floor, we're adding some little corbels and outriggers to give some sort of decorative element to the second floor. Those are going to be vaulted ceilings, so it wouldn't make sense to have a gable vent in those areas, so, since those areas are going to be vaulted anyway. The elevation from Gillespie, we're also doing a gable there, and that is flush with the existing exterior of the house that's on Gillespie, and that is actually at the master bedroom. Again, we're adding the decorative gables, decorative outriggers with the kickers on there. We're matching all the windows with the existing trim as well. On the deck behind, we are using a Craftsman style deck facade right there. Oops, go back. And then the elevation facing the garage is basically just the one turned over, and so that one's not facing any street or anything like that, but it basically shows that we're very close to meeting the solar requirement. Might need a little bit more tweaks, and that's one of the reasons why we have that sort of strange slope on that side there, so that way we meet the solar for the property line there. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to get your feedback on so far what we're doing with the architecture on it. Again, there's not a lot of room on this site to expand out and to do anything. Right now it has a non-conforming open yard as it is. Again, it's a one-car garage. The site's only 5,000 square feet, and for a modern family, it's a little bit too small. So.
You have a modern family, huh?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We try really hard.
Good.
All right, so I'm assuming that concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right, seeing as there's no one in the room to comment, we'll open up for public comment and see if there's anything virtual.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. If you would like to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, but we did receive one written correspondence from Sonia Zuniga Lumelli that was distributed to the commission prior to the hearing. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. Okay, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair, I have
Yes,
one question.
Vice Chair House?
Do you have an issue with the chimney and 2 feet above the highest point within 10 feet? I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah, we'd have to actually extend the chimney quite a bit higher in order for us to move it closer, so. That's why we kind of set back the second story like like that.
And that's an existing chimney.
That's an existing
So
chimney,
you
yeah.
will still need to extend it, is what you're saying?
No,
Oh, okay.
because we're set back from
Okay.
that 10 feet, so,
Okay, good.
yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, could you show us again the first floor addition?
Sure. So the walls in black are the ones that are going to be new. So at the, basically at the bathroom, you could see where the new addition starts, right there.
So what's there now? It's just open?
No, we have a wall.
There's a wall.
There are walls there, but the black ones are new ones.
Yeah.
We're just pushing out the side wall of the inside of the house, like,
Yeah, the
so
ones that
the
look
bedrooms are
going
gonna
out.
expand probably.
Yeah,
like,
we're expanding out towards the left side of the
Side yard.
property.
No. There's, so, in the bottom left on the front of the house.
Right.
It's a little bit confusing, but I think I understand why this is showing the black in, as the new proposed next to the front door. That's because you're infilling a window there.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So your wall line is actually out by like the 4'3" or
Yes,
so mark. That's
exactly.
where your existing wall is, and then you're
Yes.
bumping it out, and
Yes.
because you're infilling it.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was, I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out how big of
Right,
an
yeah.
extension.
It's
It
just
looked
how the
like it was
software does
huge.
it, yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, other questions?
Yes, Chair Grumbine. Can we look at the elevations of?
Sure.
I'm interested to look at the window sizes. So this is the existing, let's look at the.
Do you want to look at existing or?
Yeah, the existing. Okay, on the front. Okay, so the shape of the windows on the front are
Yeah.
like that,
Mhm.
with the leaded glass above, is that what that is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then going to the Gillespie side, you have vertical, although on either side of the,
Yeah, all those
kind
are.
of a mix, you got a mishmash here.
Yeah, you basically have double hung, but we also have some sliders that are there too. So
Okay,
the sliders are on each side of the chimney, yeah.
okay.
No, those are like French doors.
The casements, okay.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
if they're sliders, they're probably not
They're
original.
Oh, right,
casement-
yeah.
Casements.
Casements, yeah.
well, the technical
Yeah.
term, but they open, open
Yeah.
like French doors or French
Okay.
Can we
windows.
see the proposed elevations?
Sure.
Okay.
So could you, the windows upstairs, maybe you could talk about why you picked that shape?
Well, because it kind of matches some of the shapes that we have on the bottom as well. So for the double hungs, so the double hungs have the trim that goes all around them like that, and wanted to be consistent.
And are those gonna be egress windows while we're talking about them?
Well, not for that bedroom because we have a door.
Okay, great.
Yeah, in that one, we couldn't make it egress just because of
Yeah,
the roof
size,
location
yeah.
and everything. Yeah, but yeah, we have a door there right here. So we have a door out there with a little balcony right there.
Okay,
See
okay,
the
thank you.
existing one more time.
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out that attic vent, because this whole roof moves over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we basically
Turned it up.
we took the same proportions of the attic vent and moved it over to the new roof line. So
So along that line, did you study stepping back your additional portion rather than messing with that whole second gable? Just basically stepping your addition portion back, like
At the
a
first
couple
floor
foot,
a little
yeah,
bit? Yeah.
At a couple of feet, then you end up with a third roof portion, whatever that was, but then you wouldn't be changing the front elevation at all. Did you look at that as in the room, it would be creating a little jog in the bedroom?
yeah,
corner?
we did talk about that at one time. I think one of our designs, we did have that sort of little jog in the front. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to also have a window outside there, and it made the roof too low by doing it that way. So if we extended, we'd have to kick the roof as like, kind of like a,
Like a California or whatever.
yeah, something out over it in order for it to work. And so it would make the roof too low to have a window outside of that area. So
Gotcha. Okay.
that was one of the reasons.
All right. Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
So can you, I guess,
Please turn on your microphone, Commissioner. Thank you.
yeah, it may just be the drawings, but I noticed a color difference between the proposed second floor addition and the current house on the exterior walls. Is that just?
That's just software to soften up the.
Show you it's further back.
Yeah, show it's further back. It's just kind of lightening it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a color test.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not planning to change the outside, the color. We're going to
Yeah.
keep it consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions? One question about, so the back deck and the porch underneath it it looks like you had some sort of the railing above looks like you had some sort of inspiration, craftsman inspiration that you were looking at.
Mm-hmm.
The supports, was that when the inspiration you were looking at, did it have like a porch posts and supports like that, or did it have something else, or was it not on an upper level deck?
It wasn't on an upper level deck there. Yeah, that's basically a structural thing. So we could make it more decorative, but we'd need some sort of kickers or something in there like that to make it work. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Let's roll into comments. So this is for, no final appeal action will be taken, but the project compatibility findings and major alterations findings will be required. So I think we should talk about those in terms of the setback modification and open yard modification, whether those are generally supportable for right now. And then this is a one-time application review, so obviously other things might also be flagged later, but this is just a sort of a first pass at what we think of this general design and where they're going with it. So,
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know, we didn't evaluate this to the Secretary of Interior standards yet either because it's just the one-time pre-application. So,
Yep, good
and we
point.
wanted to hear your comments first on the addition, and then we can all look at the front things more
Yep.
closely.
okay, so why don't we start just kind of going through what we're seeing and what our thoughts are on it, and I'll capture down some
Mr.
notes.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, I'm generally supportive of the project, but I think that the balconies need some sort of, I don't know about poetry, but some.
You can say it.
Well, you know, they just seem a little slender. They don't seem like, the rest of the design is coherent with the time it was built, 1923, I think. And, but those porch supports seem to be a little slender. I think, I don't know what the solution is.
We could fatten them up.
Yeah. Not, we don't need a
You're right.
massive
Yeah.
case on or anything, but, you know.
After Fiesta, they'll be.
After Fiesta.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm supportive of the project.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Vice Chair House.
I think it's kind of quirky, but I'm okay with that. I would agree with the comments about the porches. It's not a craftsman solution, and it might entail larger posts. What are they now, 6 by 6?
They're 6 by 6.
Yeah. It might be, 3 of them around the corner is something
Right.
they would often do.
Would you have it on like a plinth or something like that? Or,
That probably with the
Yeah.
height, it would be a study.
Yeah, something to study, but, the diagonal braces by themselves just are
Yeah, they're a little weak.
utilitarian. I think I prefer that you replicate the attic vents, even though they're non-functional, instead of switching to another vocabulary and putting those knee braces under the barge board. But I don't know what others feel about that.
Okay. Commissioner Uli?
My only comment about that is that it makes the second floor distinguishable from the original,
Yeah.
which is the intent of the standards. The knee brace and the gable vent are both in the language of craftsmen, so I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I agree that it is just a little quirky, but that's okay. I think it's overall and general sensitive to the original building. It makes rational sense to me. I am curious why your front door swings out and not in. I thought that was interesting.
Does it swing in or out?
I think it swings in.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Okay,
swings
yeah,
in.
I'll change that.
It's an English European thing, I know. But in general, I'm supportive of the project.
Okay, Commissioner Ansberg?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the great work. I also agree with the other commissioners. I think it works really well. I like how you've dealt with it. And yeah, I think it's very sensitive. I would just, so my comments for you to look at are, I think that side deck should be supported with a bracket going back to the building. Get rid of the post entirely and just have it supported back. And then the back deck, agree about the thinness of the columns. I don't know if maybe you could put a railing around it like the above, just match it and maybe have it do the same thing as what's going on up above there. I think that could look good. I also, on this roof that has the ridge beam as opposed to the other two roofs, maybe you could do something decorative there, like a circular vent, so it's just completely different, but it's another element that looks like an attic vent, but it really isn't. Something like that. And then finally, I'm a little bit, the window shapes seem not very historical, like on this northwest elevation. It seems like they should be vertical and they should align on the left side with the windows below, as opposed to it's kind of sticking out. It's not quite an alignment. So.
You mean from the one in the second story to the one?
Yeah, the northwest elevation, it does not align on the left side with the window below, which kind of bothers me.
It likely won't.
Yeah. It can't fit in that area.
Well, maybe if the window, I'm having
like
a
a
problem with
smaller
the
window, yeah.
horizontality. I'm wanting them to be more vertical, like the windows down below.
We could probably put a singular like
Yeah,
casement
maybe
there.
Or
singular.
even to tie onto that, or even if you divide it with with the white caseworkers, unless that was what someone was saying. Sort of the central trim work that actually breaks them into two separate double hung
right,
windows,
yeah.
like is happening on the, whatever that side
Yeah.
elevation is. That's probably a little bit better for the, and that'll actually make the verticality if you
Right.
kept those pairs of
Like
windows.
the Gillespie side, the windows on the lower
Yeah,
floor.
exactly.
Those windows I would rather see replicated as opposed to these wide windows with 4 lights in them. Seem out of character. And I would say that for both. And then, now, down on the Gillespie side, this window on the far right, on the first floor, is that existing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I was just going to say it seemed really close to the corner, but if it's existing, then never mind.
Because it is really close to that.
Yeah.
That's why I matched it, yeah.
Yeah, so just, that's the general comment about the windows, even on the back side here, these horizontal windows and the 4 lights. I think you should, I would suggest that you kind of keep with the, the double hung vertical more. And also study the door of the deck of the primary bedroom. You've got the big doors, and then with these vents, it just seems a little bit large. So maybe it could be done slightly.
You mean big doors with the side lights?
Well, I guess maybe they're side lights. They're,
elevation.
yeah,
They're
I
side
call
lights,
them, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm
Yes.
looking at the same thing.
Yeah, just seems super wide for the proportions of this
So
little
would
house.
you say just make it more craftsman?
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, if you're going to have these knee braces on the deck of the, on the rear side, I think that the detail, maybe you want to match those kickers that you have.
Yeah, make it more decorative. so.
Yeah. And that was all, but I think it's really good job.
Thank you.
I think it works. Thank you.
All right. Other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I am generally supportive. I recognize that they're trying to be sympathetic and work with the craftsman language, so I am supportive. I also have, though, a little bit sorry because at the end, it's not going to be a craftsman cottage anymore. As it grows in size, it will have outgrown its initial appearance. But I recognize that as one of the challenges of trying to extend the life of small buildings like this for modern family expectations. So I'm generally supportive.
Great, thank you. All right, other comments? Okay, so I agree in general with all the comments stated, although a few more little minor ones to add. Well, actually, one of them that is more of a larger discussion. So I think as you go for the next hurdle, if you submit, part of it, the challenge is going to be meeting the Secretary of Interior standards for historic resources. And I would heavily ask you to look at trying to keep that front facade with the two gables the way it is, however you solve adding the space with a bit of a jog or whatever, but if you can keep those two gables on the front, and you've got the main side portion of it still on the Gillespie side as well, original, I think that would be ideal. So really, I'd say try to get that to work with the other things, and then see, if you really can't, then that could be a later thing, but for that would be the biggest area that I still think needs work. There might be discrepancies in terms of my colleagues here.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
That is the Secretary of the Interior standard, that they'll have to keep that unless they want to do further CEQA analysis.
Yeah.
That, altering that front facade does not meet the Secretary of Interior standards.
Okay.
So there's work.
So that will need to stay unless you want to go down the
The front
CEQA.
facade on Alberta, right? So.
Yeah.
Because the one on Gillespie, I mean, we originally actually had the second floor set back a little bit, but in order to meet the solar study, we couldn't do that. So that's why we had to.
That's the more the minor
Yeah,
facade
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So we usually, you're really following, aside from that front comment, and you can, I know you can get it to work.
Yeah.
By meeting that standard. You really are doing exactly what we ask in our guidelines, which is keep the front, the major facade first as much as possible, and then work your way back and up. And
Yeah.
so you set back, and what you're doing, so you can still see what was original for the most part, and you're trying to get it to work in the back area, which in this case you've got two fronts, so that's an understanding in terms of how to get how you'll need modifications and those things. So, and I think in general what you've done is probably more supportable visually, because otherwise, you have a massive dormer as your second floor, which would throw it out more out of character, I think. And at least for craftsmen, you don't really go above 2 stories, and even then, you try to subdue it. So, so that would be the front facade was the only major one I had. And then, as just a minor general note, I think. Get a bunch of good examples in town of good historic craftsmen and look at them for a lot of these conditions, because the details are going to be subtle and important. You're starting to interweave them. I think, as Commissioner Ensberg pointed out for the front porch, start thinking about the railings as they go around as either uniform in design or the nicest ones up front, and then go simpler as you go towards the back. That's sort of a good general approach, and it's the way that craftsmen are done in general, where you do the nicer thing up front. And then as well, studying the porch, as was mentioned, there might be a couple different ways of doing it. As Commissioner Ensberg mentioned, maybe you just do it as brackets off the deck, as a bracketed balcony off, and that might work. Or you study supporting it in a traditional craftsman way, and even if it's on the simpler side, but still, it definitely shouldn't be any fancier than the front porch and supports, but still very much in the craftsman language, and get good examples especially in town, to quote from. And then the whole knee brace discussion, I had a similar thought when there has been discussed. I think it's definitely okay to change up as you show the addition as slightly different, so you can pick it out and say it's different. And that's a totally good and fine sort of approach to take. I would say if you did that, maybe try to tie the language still a little bit. Your knee braces have a curve, and maybe you just simplify it a little bit so that they don't outshine the outriggers of the of the simple straight outriggers of the front of the house. So maybe they're similar, but they're different in their knee braces, but they're similar in terms of their ends and geometries and things, and sizing. And then similarly on the venting discussion, doing it, I think, as was commented, a different shape geometric vent. Look at a bunch of craftsmen. Sometimes they do change shape on their vents, and it might just be a subtle change, or it might be more of a major change. But I think and even if it's not actually venting, that's totally fine, just as a visual. So. With that, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll take a shot at summarizing.
Chair Grumbine, one staff comment, pardon
yeah.
the interruption. Just in your comments, if you can speak more specifically to if the setback and open yard modifications are appropriate and if they are consistent with any design guidelines.
Great. So let's open those up for first the setback modification. If you can go to the site plan where you're showing their setback.
Oh, yes.
Is everyone in general supportive with how they're doing? They're still needing this modification, but they're trying to set back, and they have these two front yards.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Great. And then
And
open
in
yard.
some cases, that's the only way to get it done.
Yep. And then the other one is an open yard modification. Is everyone supportive of that?
I'm supportive.
Yes. No.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we got, both of those are supportable. Okay. Okay, and then, so I'll take a shot at summarizing the comments, and then we can have there's no final appealable action. This is one-time pre-application, so it's just, it's not even is it to forward indefinitely, or just these are the comments? And there's no motion?
Yes, there will be no formal motion. There will just be listed comments in the minutes.
All right, so I'll summarize the comments, and as we go along, if we have discussion of them, we'll get some resolution and clarity to make sure that the comment is correct. Okay, so for one, the HLC is, in general, very supportive of the project and the sensitivity that you are doing to work with the historic resource. So as a second one here, for the front facade, we will want the existing facade on what's the street again? The major street? Alberta. To remain, and with additions to be set back from that. Okay, and then, and in a appropriate craftsman manner. So look at how that can be done. Okay, on the rear elevation, the porch supports need to be restudied with a more craftsman solution in mind, either through piers, posts, or through cantilevering as a balcony, as a craftsman balcony. Regarding the attic vents in the addition, to study using either similar attic vents or different ones that are relatable to the triangular attic vents with a different pattern. Just as a side note, I knew someone who had it both, had an attic vent and a ridge beam coming through.
The support came through the middle of it.
Yeah. So that's also a doable detail. So you can kind of combine them.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So sometimes those craftsmen get crazy. Okay. All right. So crafty.
Those green and green boys, boy.
I'm telling you. All right. Overall, we find it sensitive to the original building, and are thankful for that. Change your front door swing.
Yes.
The railing in the front to either match the proposed railing in the back balconies.
That one's existing right now, the railing in the front.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
That's
Are you sure that's original?
We don't know.
Okay.
It was that way when we bought the house, and I mean, it might
Okay.
not be original.
Yeah,
but
if it's not original, to study some sort of an upgrade to it, as it'll make the the back will look like it's
Yeah.
better than
That's
it.
fine. Sure. Yeah. It sounds like it
Don't
would actually be an
outshine it.
improvement over
Yeah.
what we have now.
Yes. And if you can find historic evidence of it, that's always better too. And then study the character of the windows. We'll just leave it as a general windows comment to make sure to tie as much to the existing as possible with as many alignments as possible.
Sure.
Recognizing that on the back wall plane, you won't be able to align things or visually, you won't be able to tell as much, but just to look at those alignments as you go around.
Yes.
And proportions.
In proportions, yeah. In proportions.
And number of lights.
And the number of lights. And the operability of those.
The color of the glass, no.
The warble of the glass. Strike that,
bottom and
yeah,
this is top,
that's right. Okay, and then, to restudy the French doors off the deck, off the upstairs deck, to be more
Like maybe-
craftsman.
Maybe a single door with a couple side lights or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, look at craftsman and go
And maybe with
towards that.
We could probably even do what do you call it? Over the door.
The transom?
Transom, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, less is more.
Right, yeah.
Less is a bore.
It's second story, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go with a Tiffany, whole Tiffany glass.
there you go.
All right. Okay, and then,
Keep going, or otherwise
let's see,
we're gonna
I
have
know,
a
I think
break
that's
before
it,
the next
actually.
item.
Well, there was the one, the brackets and the, matching the.
Oh, the knee brace and yeah, so study the knee brace to make the geometry and sizing closer to the outriggers of the historic and/or some other solution that is appropriate for the style.
Yeah, the front brace, they're just basically just outriggers in the front. So they're just
Yeah,
sticking out.
but they stick out and the verge board or barge board comes down and hooks onto it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so think about that composition and what might be appropriate and other ways of doing it too.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just simplifying it.
Okay.
Okay, and then any other additional comments? All right, and the setback modification and the open yard modification are both supportable, and especially because they are part of getting the addition to work and being sensitive to the historic resource, while being sensitive to the historic resource.
Great.
All right. Okay, any other comments? All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank
there's no
you.
motion. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
thank you very much.
All right. All right, so we are
So we gotta just
3:50.
hold our breath for 5
4 o'clock,
minutes.
so we've got to recess for 7 minutes, technically, to be able to be on time. And is everyone from your team in the room? No. Okay. Okay, so how long, when do you want us to do it? Because,
I think everybody's scheduled for 4 o'clock.
okay, so we'll just wait till 4. Yep.
Mr. Chair?
All right, so it's going to be, actually, we're going to break for 22 minutes for the record.
Could I interject? So I've worked for the Libero, and there's another project on deck, so I should probably recuse. Okay.
And when, are we still live? Okay. Can he make that announcement now, or does he have to wait until the actual item to recuse himself? Yeah, he should wait. So they're going to have to stick around.
Leave yet.
All right. So, okay, now we will not adjourn. We will go on recess. We will recess. Okay. order, Historic Landmarks Commission, July 31st, 2024. We are on to our last item, item 5, which is 33 East Cannon Perdido Street. This is located in EPV and designated a city landmark. The Libero Theater was designed in 1924 by George Washington Smith in the Spanish colonial revival style. The rear addition to the building was added in 1926. The proposal for approximately 10,000 square feet of the addition to the theater, 9,000 square feet of addition to the scene shop, and new courtyard off the Libero Paseo. So no final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and major alterations findings will be required for project design approval. And there's also the Phase 1 Historic Structures report. All right, so to staff, do you want any comments or before we go to the applicant?
No, just that's phase 1, is just for the phase 1 for reference only. It evaluated the project a long time ago, but that's the most information on the significance.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so to the applicant, if you would introduce yourselves for the record.
Mark Shields, lead architect with Design Arc.
Melissa Turner, Senior Project Manager.
Brett Hodges, Libero Board Member.
All right, welcome.
I'm also going to introduce Sarah Corder, our historian, and some fellow board members from the Libero Theater who will speak later on.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so you'll have 15 minutes if you would.
Mr. Chair, could I?
Oh, yes, sorry.
I have had some involvement with this, with the Libero, work-wise, so I need to recuse.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very much, Commissioner McClure. Enjoy your afternoon.
Enjoy your margarita.
All right. Okay, so if you'll have 15 minutes, if you would walk us through your design and, yeah, go from there.
Will do. Should I can just sit?
Sure,
and talk?
yeah.
Okay. Hi, members of.
Yeah.
Hi, members of the HLC. Thanks so much for your consideration of this beautiful addition to the Libero's rear courtyard. I'm Brett Hodges. I'm a Libero board member, and I've also been the theater's historian for about 5 years. No one else wanted to do it, so I said I'd do it. As you probably know, this year is the centennial celebration birthday of George Washington Smith and Luda Maria Riggs's masterpiece. It was opened in 1924, and it was designed for the Community Arts Association as a venue for their community theater productions. How times have changed. Today, the Libero's calendar is full of singer-songwriter rock, blues, jazz artists, chamber music, no more theater, not a single play. The cost of putting on an equity production in a mid-sized venue in a small city just doesn't pencil out at all. The Courtyard Pavilion would be an absolute game changer for the Libero and would help to ensure that it thrives for another 100 years. It would provide a space that is all-weather, that is elegant for pre-show and intermission gatherings, something that ticket buyers seem to sort of demand these days. It would help the foundation save hundreds of thousands of dollars in office rentals, and it would provide an opportunity for an additional source of revenue for rentals to organizations that don't need a full 600-seat theater. So thanks again for considering this masterful design from Design Arc.
Alrighty. Thanks for having us today, everybody. Good to see the crew. You guys are all getting a little older, I've noticed over the years. Not me.
Age today.
Anyway,
That was a wrong way to start that.
Yeah.
All right, public
Try it
comment.
again. Okay, it's all good. I'm getting older too. The whole deal with us being here was that the Libero reached out to a few architects in Santa Barbara to take place in a little competition for this project, and so I was super excited to give it a shot, and luckily they chose our work. Certainly proud to be involved in an iconic project like this. I respect George Washington Smith's work and Luda Maria, of course, as well as so many great Santa Barbara architects. And it's a challenge to work on it, and also I think to keep the building overall design sympathetic to the state of California standards, and also super compatible, hopefully, with the existing iconic structure. So that was our philosophy, and that's kind of what we endeavored to show in this work. So we entered the competition, and we were chosen to start the procedure. And Melissa and I said, well, you guys, we really don't have a solid program. We just started on basic information from the board, and so we did a round after the initial design, which would be fun for you guys to look at, working with Todd and the staff and the board members to refine the floor plan. So the floor plan you see today is after one meeting and some work, a couple weeks of work with the board and Todd and management. So that's where we are today. And we thought we'd come in to see you just to get your overall thoughts, and hopefully you like it. So might as well start up, Melissa, with do you want to go through the photos first, or no? Or do we need to?
Do you load the photos that were through the chair to the applicant team? If you hover over that Adobe icon at the very bottom,
Bottom, the red square.
you'll see another file for your photos.
I'm sure all of you know of the Libero, certainly the iconic facades, Canna Perdido and Anacapa as well. Keep moving, Melissa. This, of course, is the Anacapa side. And the iconic stage tower, of course, our addition would be to the north of the building, where there's a temporary tent structure used for film festival functions and all the extra functions that Libero has created. This is the west side, kind of northwest side, where there's the Paseo. There's a little Paseo that comes from Santa Barbara Bank and Trust and heads south across the street to this back area. This is what we call the Annex building, which now is currently used as a shop, and mechanical heat pumps are in there. That's the access door. This is the entrance from the west to the outdoor space that's currently there.
So that's on the back side of the
It's
fly
on the
wall.
back side, yeah. It faces
Beyond the rehearsal hall, which is on the back side.
Yes, and it faces the city parking lot. This is the Paseo that goes around the building that starts over at Santa Barbara Bank and Trust and connects to the city parking as well. This is the back of house, sort of the entrance off of Canna Perdido. If you were to head north, that's actually the side entrance to the theater itself. And then that other doors to the green room where they have photos of historic moments in the theater. This is looking south, I believe, and the adjacent building is where the Libero is currently renting offices. Oh, that on the left-hand side, rather. Yeah. And so perhaps we could look at the plan first. Essentially, they first came to us and said, we really need a covered space back here where the garden is. We have a tough time when it rains. We like to have events during the winter, and we need more space. And so that's where it all started from our standpoint. And later we found out how much more we needed to do in terms of the function of the theater, working with Todd and the management. And so we started with creating a banquet hall that's covered to replace the tent. And it seats now about 110 folks. And there's also to the east a prep kitchen for the events that they sponsor. To the north, we have the vision that there's an entry court. Our original plan had the entry court off of Anacapa, which is one of those illustrations that you see, which is that brick terrace there with the fountain. That was the first idea, but then working with the board and Todd, we realized that a lot of people come from the city parking lot, which is to the west, and then 75% of the attendees come from that direction. And so they thought that, hey, maybe it's a better orientation to have an entry on this west side next to the annex building. So we flipped the plan around, kind of rearranged some of the spaces and decided that, well, sure, that makes sense. Let's incorporate the paseo that comes from across the street. To your right, up there, you'll see that it's all my pencil sketches, but that's the paseo that goes adjacent to the annex building and then follows the existing path out towards Canto Perdido Street. So our vision is that this new entry court is enclosed and a super beautiful space, garden space that faces west. It'll get some sunshine, and it's kind of the pre-event space. You can have a cocktail and go have dinner inside. It also hosts a kind of a dramatic stairway that goes up inside those courtyard walls up to the terrace roof. And the terrace roof came about primarily because we realized that if we make a banquet hall with the ceilings that are tall and get up to the proper height with that, we, what was my point there? Well, okay, anyway, so we created a roof too, in essence, by going up with the ceiling, but we actually were matching the height of the existing rehearsal hall, which is in this sketch is where this terrace bar is. But getting back to the floor plan again, the next slide, which is back downstairs. The existing height of the rehearsal hall is kind of our goal. And when you stand on the city parking lot, you realize that on the roof of this new idea or new structure, there are amazing views of the mountains and fantastic views to the east towards Montecito Peak, just in that space between is it the Luda? It's the
Post office.
well, the Maria Riggs. Was the Luda?
No, you're
It's
thinking
who is it?
Julia Morgan.
Julia Morgan building. Yeah. So there's a space there where you can look down and
The Libero building, which is.
Call it the Libero building. It's confusing. Yeah. Anyway, so we realized that maybe we should put some functions on the roof and see how that goes. So we've created this roof terrace that is adjacent to a bar area that faces, that large window there faces towards the east, and then the terrace itself faces north. And so it's just a fabulous space, and I think very Santa Barbaran to have this kind of space on this project, especially with all the great entertainment that the Libero is providing in the future. And so that's kind of how that happened. And while this design was taking space, we realized that there's also in section, we can go to the section, the Libero really needed and pressed upon us that they were absolutely tired of renting next door, and I think it's to the tune of $250,000 or $300,000 a year, where they're paying for 12 office spaces in the adjacent building. So we realized that by going up, we could create a mezzanine, which you're seeing there in section, that would provide some offices for the Libero staff. And so that seemed like a good idea, and we were happy that we could provide more office space for them. Also, if you go back to the plan, Melissa, relative to office space, there's the annex building, and that is the one there to the west of the banquet hall. And we thought, well, we could probably repurpose that and put some offices on the downstairs area, a stair up to the second floor, which it's a tall building already, so we can put a second floor in there for more offices. And then we thought, well, while we're at it, we should propose a third floor, and in that case, we even have more offices, which I think there's 16 overall, which meets the Libero's standards in terms of how many offices they'd like to have. And they're decent offices with nice views to the north of the mountains. And so what you see in elevation here in the north is that third floor added on to the annex building, which has 4 offices in it. And to get from one space to the next, you go down the stairs or take the elevator across the courtyard and go up to the mezzanine offices. So there's a great way to communicate between the staff. This elevation is the north elevation, and to the right, you can see the sketch of a man or a person going through this arched opening, which is a continuation of the idea of the paseo linking up to Canto Perdido Street, as well as to the north or to the left here are clear story windows that give great north light to the banquet hall. So those are tall windows. They're up about 15 feet or so, because there's a step in elevation there as well. So above that, you'll see we sketched in some folks out on the view terrace and some Santa Barbara umbrellas. There's a proposed terrace trellis up there as well, an outdoor fireplace, and that space is, and Melissa's pointing out the stair that goes down to the courtyard entry. Well, if you go to the front elevation, the Anacapa elevation for a moment, overall, architecturally, we tried to keep the building just very simple. You didn't want to make it fancy, wanted to be subservient really to the iconic tower of the Libero, and therefore aligned the hip roof above with the top of the parapet for the actual concert space. It just fits, and the ceilings are reasonable inside the banquet hall as well as in the bar and in the office space in the mezzanine. This facade, I think, is just, we're trying to keep it very minimal with very few windows. Like the Libero itself, certainly, is so beautifully simple. That was the intention here. Also, the landscape, we plan to remove the existing pepper trees that are there and continue the alley of olive trees up Anacapa Street, and even enhance the courtyard you see with the palm trees and the fountain is now the kind of the back of house entry for service trucks and whatnot, but still we see no reason not to make that a nice space. We've widened it a bit. Architectural detailing wise, keeping all the details very simple and authentic. This is an idea. This was the idea for the first entry, even though on Anacapa, but this is now a sort of more of a service entry to the prep kitchen, and it may act as a secondary entry for those folks who come from the east. We're still working that out. But this is very conceptual, of course.
We'll talk about the back of house and
Yeah.
the basement.
Yeah, and then if we providing more space, we met with Todd, who's really the manager of the functions of all the Libero shows that go on, and we met extensively with him about how the theater works and his desires for making it more functional. So we realized that we really needed a basement under everything for more storage, chairs and tables, storage he needs. We also needed a space for more restrooms. We haven't done the math exactly on how many we need, but we know we need more. We also created a large kind of art museum style service elevator, and that service elevator takes folks up and down from the main banquet hall up to the bar on the roof terrace, as well as downstairs to the basement to the bathrooms. The elevator is actually designed to fit the grand piano that Todd is always wheeling around everywhere and other items, and so that became one of the design determinants. So we'd put padding up in the elevator when we're moving the elevator, and then when people are using it, it's kind of like the art museum in LA, the county, where you go up and it's a beautiful elevator. We also have great exterior stairs off the roof that are open air for the most part. So really, the overall design was, once we got the project, we worked closely with them and developed more of this type of service backup. There's existing dressing rooms, which are really cool, underneath the stage, which we're going to remodel and add a few more. And you can see the hatched areas are the dirt areas, so we plan to excavate like a passageway through to this new basement, which is underneath the storage building. And because of that, we feel it's necessary to demolish the rehearsal hall, which is the more nondescript addition that was done in 1926, we believe, and as well as some of the less consequential adobe walls that surround the site, which are deteriorating. One actually fell apart on the west side of the project, and some of the unsympathetic repairs that have been done over the years. So that's really part of the program. I think the overall demolition of the rehearsal hall and then potentially removing the adobe walls as well. Let's see, I think that about covers it. Do you have anything else to add to that? Where'd she go, Melissa? Any points I might have missed?
I'm just going to pass it on to.
Okay. Sarah will now speak up about some of the historic issues.
Speak up.
Unsympathetic repairs, that's my game right there. As you all know, I'm architectural historian, been brought onto this project very early in the concept design to try to make sure that we understand what this building does since it is such an important landmark. We've done extensive research already on what's been happening in the rear of the property since its construction in 1926. And we found that there's been a lot of change back there over the years. A lot of change to the adobe walls. They've been, sections of them have been rebuilt multiple times. The courtyard's been torn apart and redone multiple times. And on first glance, the rehearsal hall section did not look very altered, but the backside that faces the courtyard has, during those courtyard renovations, changed. And there's been a different fenestration back there. There's a brand new door back there. There's a lot of weird materials happening in that rehearsal hall. There's some CMU, there's some brick, there's some maybe adobe. So there's a lot of stuff happening back there. It's very confusing. But one of the most interesting things I found about that back section was that it was always designed to support the rest of the theater. It was whatever they needed it to be whenever they needed it. So it on the old plans, it showed things like a paint shop was there at one time. And the courtyard was originally just kind of dirt with a few trees spread around. And then in the 40s, they decided to do a formal courtyard. And then in the 80s, something different. And it just kind of evolved just like the rest of the building did. And this project is really interesting because it's kind of keeping up that tradition with the theater and that it's continuing to evolve with the theater and supporting the programming that they have now. And from a design standpoint, it does appear to conform to the standards, even though we are very conceptual right now. But this, if there was going to be an addition, the rear would be what we would want to look at because it's the least amount of alteration to the front facade. We can't really see what's happening back there. It's not impacting any of the real character-defining features of the building.
All right, thank you. Does that complete your presentation?
I believe so.
All right, so now we'll open public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I actually do have two speaker slips, so we'll go ahead and start with Brandon Mowry. If you want to make your way up to the
mic there
podium.
or here is fine, either way.
So we're breathless. Hello, my name is Brandon Mowry. I'm the Director of Development at the Libero. So if given the opportunity, I'll be the lucky guy fundraising for this thing. Couple of quick notes that I want to add. Start by sharing our mission statement, because there is a lot of tie-ins there. Mission of the Libero Theater Foundation is to maintain and operate the historic Libero Theater as a performing arts center and cultural asset to the community of Santa Barbara, and to present the highest quality productions in music, dance, and theater. The Libero is requesting your support to build new courtyard expansion, accomplishing the following mission-centric priorities. We need to alleviate the challenges and restraints of the Libero's current physical limitations. The theater has outgrown its inhabited space, looks for more storage and working square footage. We want to enhance the Libero experience for our in-house pre-shows and our viability to potential theater renters. We want to better steward our supporters, who in turn will ultimately lead to necessary fundraised dollars. We intend to invest those dollars in both future sustainability for the Libero, as well as providing opportunities to the Santa Barbara arts community, local students, and schools. We want to focus on the financial windfall of the current office rental costs by replacing the rented office space that we currently use. And within this new building project, six-figure savings annually for this ambitious but tiny nonprofit really will come in handy. Finally, and this is in line with our historian here, we do want to maintain our rich history. We want to invest in the physical building. We've always done that, whether it's the series of rehearsal hall alterations over the years, the addition of the Esplanade in the 90s, or the recent renovations back in 2013, which I think some of you played a role in. Theater has always sought to expand, enhance, and grow. So thank you, and once again, we appreciate your support around this plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, up next, we have Todd Jarrett. If you want to make your way up, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Do you have access to the plans? I'd kind of like to refer to them as we're
Yeah.
going through them.
And is the light on your microphone?
It is.
Okay.
Check, check, one. Check, check, there we go. There's always 3 in every room. So, my name is Todd Jarrett. I've been the technical director for the Libero Theater for over 30 years. And in that time, I've gotten to know the building pretty well and understand its shortcomings and its, well, the parts that work well. So I'd just like to take my 2 minutes to sort of walk you through how these plans address some of those shortcomings. So just starting in the basement, by pushing the basement wall out towards the north, it gives us an opportunity to move all the stuff that we currently store in the existing basement and in the scene shop, get it out of those spaces so that we can repurpose that basement, the existing basement, not only for larger, more habitable dressing rooms, but also to create something we've never had before, which is an orchestra green room that's adjacent to the orchestra pit, to give those musicians a place to put their giant cello cases or whatever before they go on to perform. Moving upstairs on the stage level or ground floor, you might notice there's a small existing stairway right there in upstage right in the corner of the stage. A little hard to see, but it's dotted in up there above. There it is. By rearranging the access to the basement, we're going to be able to get rid of that stairwell and recapture that as usable stage space. And usable stage space in a theater of this size is kind of like finding free land in Montecito. It's valuable real estate. So moving on upstairs to the second level, the mezzanine level provides offices, and others have already talked about how that's going to be useful for our staff operations. But we also anticipate that tour managers, stage managers, and others who might need a desk space for a week or maybe even just a day will now have a place that they can just sit down and do the work that they need to do to keep their shows running through throughout their tours. And then finally, moving up to the terrace level, the terrace level is not only just a VIP party space, but it's also a space where cast members and dancers and musicians will be able to meet with their parents and with their supporters after a performance without having to actually be on stage, where the stage crew is feverishly trying to push one show out and push the next show in. So it's just an opportunity, I think, to, I wanted to highlight some of those details for you so that we can move forward with our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I don't have any further speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement, so I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for questions. So this is this is a one-time pre-application review, so it'll just be comments that we make. And project compatibility, major alteration findings will be required eventually.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question.
Yeah, question.
On the basement level, if you could move to that drawing. My question has to do with the scope of the work that is going to go on here. Why leave those 2 hatched boxes of dirt? Why not turn them into basement?
They're historic dirt.
It's historic dirt. No, it's a good thought, and I think we could look at that. I think we struggled with the idea of digging a tunnel underneath the existing structure and realized that's just crazy, that we really need to demolish that. And in the process, it might be more efficient to grab that space as well, which is a great suggestion. Yeah.
The theaters can always use space.
Can always use space. That's a great idea, Robert.
I have a question, too.
Mr. Ross.
It doesn't really matter in terms of what you're proposing, but I was curious, looking at the floor plan, it looks like the green room disappeared.
Green room's still there.
Okay.
Yeah, we just didn't show the upper part. In fact, they have even more photos that
It
I
was on
think.
the plan view here.
Yeah,
It looks like walls
it's
disappeared.
right there. Yeah, we just didn't draw that with so much drawing to draw the
And then
crazy
I wasn't
thing.
clear from your presentation
looking at the backside of this scene shop, whether there was some kind of bridge involved to get, to connect the two buildings?
No, there's
Okay.
definitely not. There,
Okay.
the idea was that from the banquet hall right now, after a meal, then you're gonna go see the performance. Everybody's got their cocktails, and they can't go out on the Anacapa side and walk down Anacapa Street with a cocktail because it's illegal. So we decided to make that back entrance more interesting and put a trellis over the entire paseo back there, so people can walk out from the banquet hall in the rain with their cocktails, and then they would enter the side of the theater from the west. And so the board loved that idea, and so that's what we're showing, or our intent is to show the trellis posts, which you see on plan right there.
And is that trellis have a solid covering on it?
Solid roof, yes.
And do you have that drawn anywhere?
We don't have a drawing of it. We have a photo of the idea of it, which is something I had worked on years and years ago at the Braille Institute.
Right.
But that's the idea of it. It's not exactly, of course, correct, but that's the feeling of it. That trellis helps connect people from the city parking to the banquet hall when they're arriving for a pre-event dinner.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Commissioner Drury.
So when all this is said and done, will you be able to see anything of the new project from Canna Perdido? Sort of that iconic view of the front of the...
Not really, I don't think. I think the only thing...
Can you go to a photo of
Yeah.
that, actually?
I think the only thing you're going to see would be the new trellis, access trellis, and if you're standing in the middle of Anacapa Street looking north, you would see the addition, of course. But from Canna Perdido, you're going to see nothing. In fact, we set the addition in from both sides. If you look at the north elevation,
So
everything's kind of...
on here, so
That one, that top.
yeah, so you're there on the top left behind that olive, or if that's an olive. Yeah, so off to the left back there is where your trellis
Yes.
cover, your solid
Yes.
cover trellis. But
And that's
sort
the
of back
existing
behind.
paseo.
Yeah, right here.
Right there. Yeah. And then from here, Michael, what you might see is if we did the third story on the annex, you might see that stick
I don't
up
think it's
just a
gonna be
bit,
visually
way up the paseo.
Thank you.
And where does that proposed, I guess it would be, it's a covered walkway, colonnade or arcade, whatever you do. Where does that come to? Can you go and plan?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think through what Commissioner Drury was
There we
kind of
go.
implying. Okay, yeah, so it goes to where the end of this building is, so it's not.
Yes,
okay.
and then it goes over the entry to the banquet hall too. So that dotted line is to keep people covered when they leave the banquet hall and go out and around and into the theater.
Gotcha. Right here, yeah.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
To follow up on that question, is that a private paseo?
It's not. It's public and will be pretty much consistently, but I think it will become private when they have an event, or there will be someone at each entry saying, hey, do you have a ticket to this event or whatever. So there's still some details to work out with that.
Is because I noticed that here, where the cursor is, close to the cursor, you have like an archway that you've created there, I think.
Yes.
So it does sort of send the message that this is a private area, not a public area. So I'm just wondering what your thinking is about that, of how you preserve the public access to that area.
That's a good point, and we can develop that and work on that and study that.
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Butler.
Could we see the Anacapa Street elevation for a second? So looking at the roof line of the existing portion of the building, did you consider extending that into the new development instead of the red tiled roof?
That's a possibility. One thought that I had about this was to keep it all sort of subservient to the original overall massing, and I think with the eave dropped like this, with this hipped roof with tile, there is a lot of tile in the project anyway.
Right.
From the street level, you'd perceive that building as being much lower. But that's a thought. And one thing I didn't mention is that this was just a sketch that, part of the competition, was that I know that state standards are not to duplicate, other architectural features of the existing structure. And so I think that cornice that you see that I sketched in, we would simplify.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, we would simplify that and tone everything down so we're not copying existing details, but we're reacting to and being sympathetic to the original vision.
Yeah, my reaction was it looked like an addition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my eyes were drawn to it immediately, and that was the thought behind my question.
I think that's a good point and worth studying, yes.
Other questions? On this elevation, I had a question. So did you have any other thoughts as opposed to a super dinky wrought iron railing on top of a wall for the upper level? Is there any other way of thinking, thoughts of meeting code but not having this, like, I don't know, 12-inch wrought iron railing?
We could look at that. My experience, though, with these rooftop decks is that it's oppressive to have a solid 42, but we could certainly look at options for that
Set it
railing.
back or
Yeah,
something that-
or maybe it's even lower, or so it doesn't look, it needs to look historic, I think, and kind of go away, but like the Californian, we fought that, and we had 42-inch railings, and it's just, it messes with the view and everything, so, but we can study that, Anthony, for sure.
Question.
Yeah.
The adobe walls around the perimeter of the courtyard in the back are part of the designated landmark, as I understand. So is that a big issue to demolish those?
So the issue with the adobe walls is that's something that we've studied extensively already because everybody loves adobe. The adobe walls have major integrity issues. So even though they are part of the landmark, taking them out would not force the landmark to not be able to convey significance. So that's how we can get around removing them and they were actually not called out as character defining in the original landmark documents. So that is kind of where we were at, and that they've moved around a lot and they've been rebuilt a bunch of times. So they really don't have a lot of historic integrity. So that would be the argument that we would make in the phase 2 for why they could come out.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions before we roll into comments? Okay. All right. So let's roll into comments. What are?
I'll take a stab.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of us share the same kind of hesitation or frustration you might have been approaching when you were asked to design an addition to an iconic building. I completely get the fact that the theater's success is driving the demand for more space. I get that. My challenge is adding on to such an iconic building. And, they've been done in a number of ways. I think Barton Meyer's approach would be to have something completely out,
Right.
but
Absolutely.
that wouldn't fly here. A glass box, that's not going to fly.
Exactly.
You're right. One way to
pyramid.
yeah, well, yeah.
That was our earlier comment. We did not bring that today.
Another architect to another museum. So I get this extreme challenge. I'm currently teetering on the fence of whether or not the building should be added onto at all versus how. So I asked myself, well, what would George Washington Smith do? What would Luda Maria Riggs do if she were posed this question? How would she approach it? Is there a way that the addition, for the most part, can be invisible? Very little vertical footprint, as it were. No red tile, as an example, no big windows. It just disappears. Or, as Frank Lloyd Wright would say, plant ivies because you can hide ugly architecture with landscaping, right? Not to say this is ugly.
But you did call us old.
Or imply that it is, right? So that's what I'm struggling with. And in broad strokes, I don't have a problem with the roof deck. I get why that space is important for a use. In a nice summer, it could be, a rehearsal space for
Exactly.
something that's going on. So I totally get the programmatic things that you're trying to solve. I'm just struggling with, is it the right solution to this iconic building? I suppose, again, in broad strokes, putting it on the back of the building is better than putting it next to the building or in front of the building or on top of the building, because there might be solutions for that as well, but that would never fly. I'll go along this journey with you, but I think it's going to be a struggle. And if we struggle with it, I think the community definitely will be struggling with it as well.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in out of turn because I think I have similar thoughts as you, but also because similar things that are particular that maybe would be good for, I think, others to react to as well and kind of weigh in. I similarly, when seeing this, I was thinking, okay, red tile and a fancy and the fancy cornice. Even though you're diminutive in terms of the size, and that's right. The dropping in height is a good initial design move too. But you out fancied it by taking the fanciest feature and adding red tile and a giant arch, awesome view window, which is those are all very strong moves, which are very nice and beautiful, but it fights against that the simplicity of the arch on the George Washington Smith. So it outdoes that giant arched door drawbridge. The drawbridge. It competes with that in some ways, and it's glass and fancy in that. So I think if some of the subtlety of that simplifies and really becomes very diminutive, I think I can imagine, and Anne has good landscaping, Anne has ways of toning it down, so your eye right away goes to the giant, stage and the Libero building itself, or the theater itself as the historic portion. Then I think I could see a possibility where this design becomes simplified and disappears almost, at least from the main public road, right? The only one, the other side is the more main, but it's I think you did a great job totally hiding it. So I think on that side there's no competition. On this side is the only one where there's competition. But then in addition to that, my mind jumps to, what does this actually look like in perspective too? Because I think that in elevation, it has a very strong move in terms of the balance and counterbalance. But I think in perspective, it might be different. And I think that that's going to be an interesting portion of this as well. So I think there's a couple of things that are tied to what you were saying that I was seeing specifically as well, that it might work and it might be good, but I think some of those things will need to tone down and adjust. So I'll stop at those comments, but I wanted to kind of piggyback on yours as part of the continued thought of.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Drury?
If I may. So my friend Hank Pitcher, looking at paintings, for a critique, would ask, where's the party? When you look at a painting. Well, the party in the Libero is from the big upright plane all the way to the front. Now you have two parties proposed, right? You have a party in the front and a party in the rear. And I think the simplification of that architecture, no umbrellas, maybe a trellis, a linear trellis. I would probably lose the red tile, and certainly lose or rework the ironwork, because the less you approach that as a thing, the more of the party goes on in the front. I mean, just visually speaking, it just seems to me. So I would ask, where's the party? And the party always should be in the front of the building. And I would suggest simplification as much as possible.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
I think I'm going to take a different tack and say I think that Mr. Smith and Ms. Riggs would be very pleased with this. I know I am, and I think it has a nice balance to it. I agree with a lot of the comments that have been made in terms of the simplification of the cornice and reduction in the size of that arched window. But I like the balance to the composition. I agree that perspective drawings are going to be very helpful to kind of understand the impact. But I know the fly loft, as you're coming down Anacapa, is very looming right now. So I don't think that it's harmed at all by having that something that kind of softens that. And I am so happy to get rid of that ugly green tent. Yeah. And I think also, you know, that roof deck is up quite a ways, and you probably wouldn't see those umbrellas from
From
street level.
perspective, you'll see
Yeah.
those.
And I have no problem with the ironwork on top of that wall because it kind of softens it, and it's better than the plaster wall going higher, and it can be a nice little detail. The things I have a problem with, I'm not sure about adding a third story to the scene shop. I just, you know, it's historic, and I'd rather kind of preserve its shape. And I really don't like the pergola going along the paseo with covered roof because during the day it's going to be kind of dark under there, I think. It's got tall buildings on either side. And it's, I know at Canon Perdido there's a plaque in the bricks that says this, permission to pass is revocable at any time. So I don't know what that implies in terms of the ownership. But I believe it's part of the public paseo system, and there shouldn't be anything that denies somebody from the public from walking through there anytime, whether there's a show on there or not. So I just think that whole pergola trellis thing is unneeded.
Can we discuss that as a group, that piece too? Because I think that piece is going to be an incredibly important part to design well, a well-designed paseo. But on that, my mind was jumping there too, but also jumping to El Paseo and how portions are totally covered, not just covered, but you're in a building going through, and solid and skylights and open to one side, and then that comes out on Anacapa, and just the one block over, and has an arcade that's all solid and covered. But so there may be, I think in my mind, it could be a great design. It could be a really great paseo that is this covered paseo that you walk through as a public, but it really has to actually feel like an open to the public paseo that happens to have this cool hangout libero spot off of it. So it doesn't seem like there's enough information to even judge it yet, but it's going to be really hard to get it all to work, I think. But that, I think, is a really could be an incredible addition to the paseo system if it's done well. And then it could be horrible if it's done poorly.
I would agree, and especially if they don't locate the Edison transformer anywhere in it.
We're going to do a mural on that.
Because that's probably going to be required too. I agree with that, Mr. Chair, with your comments on the paseo. If it doesn't have a solid roof and it has a vine growing on it, it seems very natural and it should be there.
On that very point, one quick comment. This whole presentation for me, and I have other comments, but one of the things it does is raise an issue for us in terms of what is useful for a pre-application review. And this paseo, and I would say the north elevation, were cases where I just didn't feel I had enough information to offer really positive or helpful constructive comments. Whereas there are other aspects of it where I do feel like much more confident about expressing an opinion. So that's just an issue when we see something that says pre-application review, how much information, because I know you don't want, it's not a time to design everything. It's not worth it for you guys to be investing at this stage. Still, there's this issue of what do we need to make the process useful. So I think that the paseo will turn out to be one of the critical points of discussion every time it comes back. And beyond that, I don't know what to tell you, except that it's,
No, I
my
get it.
takeaway is this is
Yeah.
really going to be an
Yeah.
important piece of it.
Yeah, I totally understand, and I think the points that are brought up are worth looking at design-wise, and certainly I have ideas about the trellis back there in terms of opening it up and making it a nice space and not oppressive. Certainly, and welcoming would be the goal. And so we'll come back with more details and more ideas, and I think one thing, I think Robert, is strong points, and I understand everything you're talking about, but I also think that buildings can change, and they need to change in a positive way, right? And certainly, this is an iconic Santa Barbara landmark. It's no doubt, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful building. Our intention would be to, with your help, to make it that way and keep it that way and respect the existing architecture perfectly as best we can. But I also think that from a Santa Barbaran and a concert goer and someone who enjoys this city and grew up here, I think to provide this kind of space for the Libero and for the people of Santa Barbara for the next 100 years to improve it and make it even more exciting with a view deck or a bar that's on top, or Todd and all the extra space he needs. I love the idea of excavating the basement more. I think that's the point, and we'll do our very best to make sure that the architecture is sympathetic and attractive. And, another version of this, of course, is no windows, right? It's just a beautiful plaster box, and that's a possibility as well. But I get that. I totally understand.
Let me respond to that. I think the presentation was excellent. You really made the case why touch this iconic building. I get it.
Yeah.
And how that benefits the city of Santa Barbara. I get that. So so my compliments on you for that. And I saw the argument best in plan. In other words, what we were going to do back here, the plan, you're going to tweak it, but I'm really persuaded by that. Our discussions, as it's turned out, are on like elevations and exteriors. And I will say that for my part, the red tile on the addition calls attention to itself as an addition. And again, in pre-application, where we're just talking back and forth about ideas, I really would encourage you to make the addition disappear in the sense that when people see it, they'll say that was part of the original. In other words, that it's a solid box with this great fly tower coming out of it, but the cornice line is carried all the way through. And you mentioned several times that the design was very simple. In fact, I would take a little bit of issue with that. I think the original building is actually a very dramatic architectural essay in scale. In
Yes, it is.
things
Yeah,
that
no doubt
dwarf
about it.
the human
No
scale
doubt
as you go
about it.
by.
Yeah.
And what I would hate to see is something that begins to compete with the big wow moments of the original design. So when I look at the Anacapa elevation and I see your arched window on your addition, that to me begins to compete with the great arch on that.
Of the
I'd
stage.
almost rather see it just
Square,
a white box all the
Stage
way
entry.
through, a stage or something. So, in other words, one theory of adding additions was always to make them stand out, make sure that it was different, and that's not going to work here. So, but I'd really like to see it that 50 years from now, people look and say, I didn't realize that was an addition. That was part of the original, which means carrying a lot of that, of the original elevation all the way across. But you make I buy the argument. I've got the argument. We have to touch this iconic building, and you've got a strategy for doing that.
And one last note on that to tag on to your comment. I mean, one of our findings is, often it is, if it's not just a pure restoration of a historic thing, then you're making the changes for the continued, use and, thriving nature enhancement of the thing. So what you're saying makes total sense in terms of needing to continue for another 100 years, needing these other support spaces and needing the program of all this stuff, and sort of to magnify it. So that makes sense as a general direction of like, this is why we need to to add something that's more, or take off this back of house portion. So that sort of ties to, part of what you were saying. Commissioner Butler?
Oh, I'll just, I think I started my comments with that red tile. It's just jumped out at me. I hate to say this, but the big window looks like Paseo Nuevo. I think do no harm. I wrote it down. Do no harm. And to just support the earlier comments, I think I recognize the utilitarian needs. I support that. Get that. But I think to the point that was just made, somebody in 20 years walks by or whatever time, it looks like a single building built all at the same time.
Make it disappear by making it more like the original.
Right. So it's integrated.
So the only issue with that plan and making it matchy-matchy, my technical term, matchy-matchy, is that repeating the cornice line does create conjecture. So from my professional perspective, I would say to simplify, okay, I get that, but repetition of the cornice line, I would rather see it very simple and not the same, because then that helps to differentiate what's old and what's new. It can still blend into the background. I get that, and I get all the comments about the roof as well. So I think that it's just that matchy-matchy would be the only hiccup I would see in continuing the cornice line down.
So, and as a, just sort of a comment on that, I think we've seen various successful iterations where you might match the height and the plasterness of that cornice, but it abstracts to the top and bottom, or a different profile or whatever. Or you might drop it and change it or whatever, but basically not make it really actually potentially make you fool, like if you were being really careful about it. But, yeah. And then, Commissioner
Chair Grunbein? Yeah, I guess I'm the last one here that has not spoken unusually. But
I kept waiting to see you turn.
well, I had my light on for a while.
So shy.
But I agree with much of what others have already said. I like I think Commissioner Uli started with the invisible, and I agree with that. And I just, I think others have said it in other ways, but I will just reinforce that. The power of this building is a lot of it, besides just the front and the tiering, is this amazing side door, which I've drawn many times through Kids Draw Architecture. Is just incredible. And then seeing that gigantic wall when you're coming down Anacapa Street and seeing that full-on wall is just phenomenal. So I totally understand the program, and I completely support the program. I have no problems, and as Commissioner Jordan said, the plan, I don't have an issue with the plan. It's just, and we're looking at the aesthetic, how is this looking? So to me, and I think Commissioner Drury also said, where's the party? Well, it's everywhere right now. He kind of doesn't tell you where to go, because you're kind of drawn to the back because there's all these umbrellas back there. I think you said that the door to the right of the big arch door into the stage area, that's just an example of a previous version. So I understand that, and I think that is a very beautiful composition, but I think it doesn't go there. Because this door has a whole different, the big door has a whole different purpose. It's back of house, trucks coming in, loading up. So I think that can just be plain. Doesn't need to be there in that way. I also feel that, I understand, for the roof deck, I understand, I don't think the railing helps. I think it should be a higher wall. It's about how that building feels from the public. Not from if you're up there having a cocktail. The priority should be from below and how the building works. And I think you can make that work if you made it a higher wall. But then again, we're trying to do the invisible thing. So how do you reduce the scale of it? Certainly, I have the same issue as others have said about the roof, the tile roof. I feel like that. It feels like this is like a whole different building that has nothing to do with the Lobero. That's kind of how it feels to me. It's like, oh, somebody did another building over there. It doesn't feel like it's part of the Lobero. And I don't feel like this is what George and Luda would do. That just the simplification, just the power of that simple building, as Commissioner Jordan said, is really. So I guess I agree with lots of, just strip it down and keep it simple. And also, I guess I would say, and I think it's very, very important about that Paseo. When we were doing the charrette in 2020, my team worked on this block, and I think that Paseo is called Paseo del Teatro, if I'm. And then the other part of it that goes over by the bank is called Castillo. Paseo Castillo, I believe, is correct. But anyway, it has a name, and it's really, really important that it be very clear that you can walk through there and not feel like, oh, I'm suddenly in private property land. So I think that's really important, and
No ticket needed to pass.
yeah, right. And so I totally appreciate and respect all the work that you guys are doing, and I think that it's absolutely important to produce these working spaces for the Lobero to continue its job for the community and to continue these amazing performances that we all enjoy so much. But we also want to, preserve this incredibly iconic building. So I would agree with Commissioner Uli, is go with the invisible cloak. The invisibility cloak.
The shroud of invisibility.
Okay, and then any other comments? I think I've sprinkled mine in there. The only other one, mine throughout, but I guess the other comment I would say is to the owners and the applicants and those working from the Libero side of thing. I want to commend you on picking someone who can really do a great job. So this is, we know that you've already, even though we've given you some good, harsh, tough love here, I think we know that you're capable of it, and we're very happy and confident that you're taking on this
I want
project.
to chime in for a sec. I mean, I understand, it's such a fine line, between the beautiful building that it is, and I love that building, and I get it, and that's why I'm so happy to work on it, right? It's an opportunity to really make something great. And then the question of, once you're there, using it to, as a person, how good it could be, if you're up on that terrace and you're a patron or you're a guest or whatever. And I think that's important Santa Barbara-wise. And I think that George Washington Smith and Luda Marie Riggs would like that. I mean, you're celebrating the town as well, and I get it with the window, and certainly the iconic door. And I think all your information has been super helpful, and I get it. And I think that we'll work on simplifying the project, and I think that's one reason we came in today, is to kind of try to help define where we are architecturally between the state ideas on how an addition should occur, and certainly the Parisian Louvre is a classic example of, do you match the building? And I think that's not right either. I don't think that's okay, right? I think, no, I think simplifying is good. I think that I'm excited that you've kind of said okay to the overall program, right?
And massive.
I like that, and that's one of the things I pointed out to the board, that, hey, well, let's go in and chat with these guys and see what they say about the overall massing.
You're
right? 'Cause-
wise.
Yeah, right? And then we'll go back to work, right? So I get it, and I thank you for your input, and we'll do the best we can.
I think George and Luda would buy you a drink up on that.
I hope so. That's what I keep thinking, right?
Mr. Chair,
The umbrellas.
I have one more comment, not related to the project, but to the 100th anniversary of the building. The HLC has adopted a uniform plaque that you can order without coming through design review that says this is a landmark built in 1924 and designated at such and such a date. And the City Hall is installing theirs this year as well, because they're also 100 years old and doing it as a ceremony. So it might be.
Might be a fun.
We are trying to make sure that the public knows what our historic buildings are in the years that we were constructed. So I encourage you to do that. I can send you that information if I have your contact. Okay. Anyway, that's my plug for our plaque program.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Yes, Commissioner Ansberg.
Also, I'd like to just say, if it isn't abundantly clear, we all love this building, and there's never been, whenever I have been there for any kind of performance at all, in any kind of shape that it's in, I have always completely enjoyed it. So, it's just one of those things that's part of our treasure trove and that we all love. So, we're all very passionate about it. So I just want to be very clear about that, and that we appreciate the need and want to help you as a commission to get
This
the
will be a
best.
success.
Well, I think everybody's super passionate about it. I know I used to go, my first trip to the Libero was in high school, and all the surf films. Right, it was so much fun, and the legacy of what these guys have kept going and changed has been so much fun in my life, and so I care about it, and we want to make it beautiful, and we want to make everybody as happy as we can.
Yep.
Especially us.
Right.
All right.
Did you have a?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Mr. House.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that weighed in on the third floor on the.
I'm thinking about the same thing.
I would say, I would agree the same thing. In general, if we can keep it, it would be, keep it as is and find other ways for the program to work. That would be very much ideal.
Saves us an elevator.
There we
Well,
go.
and I'm going to go the other way because, that little building is not as important as the main building. And so I'm comfortable if alterations need to occur to it to make it useful.
Okay.
And Chair Grumman, I agree with Commissioner Uli. I didn't have a problem with that part of it. I thought that was appropriate, and it's enough separated over
Yep.
that it isn't really impacting.
Any other thoughts on that? Because I'm just going to mention it as at least a split so that they know going forward they can go one way or the other in terms of opinions on that building in particular. Is that fair? Everyone okay with that? Okay. All right, so let me give it a shot at summarizing the comments, and then we'll see if there's any more or any refinements of it. So first and foremost, we wanted to thank the applicant for bringing us a really important project on an incredibly important landmark, and for bringing it to us early to discuss and to get our thoughts on it. So we really appreciate that. And we are encouraging of helping to make the landmark succeed going forward. So, and the project for the project in general. So regarding the floor plans and the general overall scope, the HLC is in generally favorable to this size of addition in terms of the scope. Our main concern is the overall massing, vertically massing, and detailing of, we'll get into other things later, but we'll just say that our main concern is in the vertical massing and detailing. And so to that, one of the things that we're going to need for sure as we evaluate it going forward is perspectives, and probably a decent number of them from all different angles, especially from the major public streets. And also from the Paseo views and how both the patrons and the public would walk through those and what that experience is like.
And Mr. Chair, you might add to that, animation might help us
Yes.
see that, not stilled images.
Yes, a three-dimensional model of some sort, whether it's digital or animation or whatever, or a physical model. We've had some nice physical models lately as well in terms of being able to look at, will be helpful to understand a very complex three-dimensional space, especially in the Paseo area. So that three-dimensional aspect is really important. Overall, the idea of the addition being a simplification of and not drawing any more attention to it than the main landmark building is important as a general principle, including elements such as the red tile roof, the cornice, and these are on the Anacapa elevations, the arched window, the large arched window viewing from the bar, as well as the railing solution, railing wall solution for the terrace, was it second floor? Yeah, second floor terrace.
Roof terrace.
Roof terrace.
Mr.
For the roof
Chair,
terrace, yes.
sorry,
terrace, yeah.
just quick clarification, is that also a split concern amongst the board, or is that unanimous? Because I heard some people say they were fine
like
with
it.
it. Yeah.
As current design, or split, okay, yeah, split. I could be various things, I just think it needs to be better.
We're trying to give general
Yeah.
suggested guidelines to study, give them
Yeah.
our feelings about it, and they're going to come back with.
Yeah, and we'll say a number of commissioners feel it should be restudied.
They'll come back with a chain link fence on top.
And then we'll say, hey, that's like say number 3.
Pardon my interruption,
Yeah.
to the chair. Was the commission only split on the railing wall solution or on all of the items that you?
I would say just the railing wall
the railing
solution,
solution.
yeah,
Okay, we'll
sorry.
make that a
That's
separate
a
comment.
good point. Let's have that as a separate item, and the commissioners were
There's
split.
something else we were split on. What was that?
Pairs. Okay, let's, staying on this, what's that?
The third floor on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so we'll cover that as a separate one. And actually, we can cover it now. So the commission was also split on adding a third floor to the,
Yeah, shop.
Yep. That one. And with those that felt that it should be somewhere else, to shift the space somewhere else, especially because it's a small amount of space, rather than change that building.
Chair, could I say also that if having the 3-story building enables possibilities for the addition on the end to get smaller, then I would really, I think that is.
Maybe that's just a comment we tell them.
Just a comment, yeah.
Right here, just so you know. That we don't need to actually put it in the minutes.
Yeah.
But you know what we mean, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree, that's similar. Let's see. Okay, the Paseo, so the Paseo design is not, we don't have enough information to thoroughly review it yet. And it is a very complex 3-dimensional space. So this is going to be very important of how the public passage through this space is allowed and promoted, while at the same time also having patron access to the, what is the event space called in the back again?
The banquet.
Rehearsal hall.
The rehearsal hall.
Yeah, the banquet room and the. Yeah,
Rehearsal hall.
So, so we are talking about that. North.
For the Paseo, did you also want to talk about the trellis covered, et cetera, as part of that Paseo? Or you're going to do that as a different item?
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. Well, so on the Paseo item, we should also, I guess a lot of it is just study it.
Yeah.
It may end up being a cover, or it might not be, or there might be a lot of different solutions.
Yeah.
We'll come back with more information.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yeah.
you mentioned the example of El Paseo and how,
Yeah.
yes, this kind of thing could work. I would just add, just to help, from my perspective, I think you have enough going on. And so I would, I'm always looking for lowest common denominator, what you really need. And to me, I think we've all walked through that space many times. It compresses you, you're in the you're on the street, and then you go through there, and it compresses you down very well, and then you open up when you get to the other end. So I feel like it functions very well as is, and I don't feel like it needs this whole trellis thing on top of it. In fact, I think somebody said it could tend to be oppressive. So not to say, like you gave the example of El Paseo, that it couldn't work. I just think you have so many other things to focus on and be looking at, that this is just adding another whole element of intense study that I would just ask you to look at that and really think whether or not it's necessary. And in my view, it isn't.
Or what it is, depending. Because I think what you're saying is right. It could end up being just too much, right?
Yeah.
It could be too
And
many
being
notes.
open, you know, the two walls of the buildings on
But
either
there might be a
side.
solution in there that does something with that Paseo that might be able to.
Yeah, I don't want to stop on their creativity. I'm just saying you already have a narrow space, you've got walls on either side, you already have the proportions of a space, and you've got the sky above and plantings. So maybe it isn't needed, but if you guys really want to go for it, then.
So is your point just to study it?
Yeah, it needs to be great.
Yeah, all right. I think that's
Yeah.
sufficient.
And, yeah. And then if it is, then they find out a great solution, great. If there isn't a great solution there. that might-
Because you're referring,
Yeah.
you were referring to the paseo at the El Paseo, the one where.
That's what I was referring to in
The
terms
fully
of a
covered,
covered.
it's in the
and you have
building.
Skylights and you have partial open
Yeah,
one
right,
side.
right.
So there's all the, my only point with that is there's all different ways of doing paseos. There's
Yeah,
indoor,
yeah.
outdoor, and some of them really work great and some of them are
Yeah.
bad.
Visible.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because they have transformers.
Well, there it is. There it is right there.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, if I may, just while this image is here and while we're still talking about it, because I think you bring up some good points, but looking down this paseo from East Kenner Perdido, you would not be seeing the trellis at all. What you see is the termination of, or you'd see a very tiny little
The face
sliver.
of it, you just see the,
Our
facade.
intent was not
Yeah.
to compromise the experience, but more so to enhance the sense of arrival of guests that are coming in and the experience of approaching the courtyard, which we intended to be somewhat of a very intimate, with a beautiful grand stair, maybe a few palms in there to activate it, and the trellis was kind of a means to create that draw without
And-
eliminating the
before
public
we get into
access.
too much
A discussion.
Because we don't need to litigate it right now,
No,
do we?
no.
No, but I think the main issue is, you have that in plan, and we don't know
Where
what
it
that
is.
actually,
What is it?
how does that actually look? And even when.
3D animation.
Yeah. And so I think that's gonna be where we're actually gonna see and try it out. Yeah.
And
Get some great skills.
And to, caution that you be sure not to be sending a message to the public that you're not allowed to come here. So it started, it feels a little bit like a
Yeah.
land grab.
It's basically this is a tough one. In my mind, this is a very tough design question. And so that just needs to be, we understand that we're.
It's a coastal access question.
I mean, the whole project will hinge.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're good with
Okay.
that. No, we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, we get it.
And then, okay, let's see what else we have. We've, there was a comment about the north elevation seeming unresolved. Can we take a look at that real fast? North elevation. Yeah, so, and I wrote it down, but I want to, whoever made the comment, I want to just make sure that
Is
we're.
it about this here?
That's
That-
what I
that
was wondering
intersection.
what that was, but that's.
My comment is that
Can you-
Horizontal
right where
lines,
the-
horizontal lines between the theater and
Yeah.
the scene shop.
That's way in back. Those are
Okay.
existing.
Yeah. All right.
So I think, again, this is a perspective
clarification.
question, like, of actually understanding where the, yep.
And I would say to Cass that we might attempt to make the paseo more interesting
Yeah.
for
I
people
mean,
to walk in and
I-
inviting, so.
I mean, you have the theater paseo,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you have the giant mouth from
It's
the
bigger.
garden in Italy, the bird, whatever that. Yeah, Boromasa, that one. And then you walk
Yeah.
through this
Yeah,
giant
right, it's
theatrical space.
See what the pen doodles.
But yes,
Good with that.
but in
Yeah.
this elevation as well, you can see the stairs going up, and I think that whole question is like, what is that three-dimensional? This is a very complex three-dimensional
Yes.
space, and what does that actually
Yes.
feel like is going to be important
Yes.
as part of this?
Yes.
So, okay.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, just to simplify all that discussion into a comment, would it be study the north elevation as it currently looks unresolved and provide additional perspectives?
Yeah, we'll just say a special study of the north elevation and the paseo entrance and the intersection of all the various buildings. And I'm sure they will anyways with all the 3D
Yeah,
stuff.
because it's just not that elevation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's everything about that.
All right. Any other comments that I missed? Oh, actually, one more. So I think I missed the comment, which was Commissioner Ensberg's as well about what used to be the formerly known as main entrance on Anacapa Street into that public space, which is a beautiful rendering, but you're also now changing it to more back of house, which makes a lot more sense, and we're supportive of that because that's the more public edge of things, so to simplify it more and play it down because of, we think, a good move. Is that
Yes.
fair? Okay. Okay, so that, simplify that side entrance and make it feel more like an appropriate for its purpose. And then expand the dirt space.
And support.
That's hardly in our reclaiming.
Explore reclaiming the dirt. Okay.
Free dirt.
No, right? We got to do something with that.
All right, and I think that's all I have on my list here. Is there any other comments that want to be discussed or added? Okay.
Put the dirt in a little vial.
There you go. That's a fundraiser. Buy a historic dirt.
From a fundraiser perspective, the plight of finding investment on an invisible building, I'm struggling with coming up with that pitch.
There we go. Take one adobe block at a time. Everyone wants an adobe block from the Libero. All right. All right. Yeah, I know. They disarmed me this time. It was on purpose. They didn't want me. Okay. So I usually have a gavel to.
This does not require a motion.
No. Yeah. All right. So, and all good with the comments?
Right, thank you,
All right.
guys.
Thank you all. All right.
Right, thanks.
All right. And the meeting is adjourned.